The Clone Wars had taught the galaxy many things about impossibility. A democratic republic tearing itself apart over trade routes and political philosophy. But nothing, not the ancient Sith holocrons, not the most far-fetched Jedi prophecies, not even the wildest tales spun in Coruscant's lower-level cantinas had prepared anyone for what happened above Christophsis that day. The space battle had been routine by Clone Wars standards. Anakin Skywalker's fleet engaged separatist frigates in orbit, while ground forces battled for control of the crystal planet below. Vulture droids swarmed against ARC 170 starfighters. Turbo laser fire lit the void between capital ships. Clone pilots died with practiced efficiency, while tactical droids calculated optimal firing solutions. War, in all its terrible predictability. Then reality tore open. It wasn't a hyperspace jump. Those created specific exit vectors, calculated paths through dimensional space that every navigator in the galaxy understood. This was something else entirely. 5 massive ruptures bloomed across the battlefield, like wounds in the fabric of space itself. Bleeding colors that shouldn't exist, energies that made every force sensitive within 3 systems gasp and clutch their temples. 5 shapes emerged from the rifts. Mechanical lions. Each one was easily the size of a consular-class cruiser. Impossibly detailed. Moving with organic fluidity that no droid or starfighter had ever achieved. A black lion. Sleek and predatory. A red lion trailing fire from its propulsion systems. A green lion that seemed to bend light around its hull. A yellow lion, massive and heavily armored. And leading them, a blue lion, whose eyes glowed with an energy that made hardened clone veterans whisper prayers to gods they'd been told didn't exist. What in the name of the Force? Anakin Skywalker breathed from the bridge of his Venator-class Star Destroyer, watching as both Republic and Separatist forces momentarily ceased fire, every weapon tracking these impossible newcomers. Inside the Blue Lion's cockpit, Keith's hands flew across controls that suddenly meant nothing. "Please tell me you're seeing this." "I'm seeing it," Lance's voice crackled through their communications system. "I'm just not believing it. Where's the Galactic Empire? Where's Zarkon's fleet? Forget them, where are we?" Pidge's analytical voice cut through rising panic. "These star patterns don't match anything in our galaxy. Not even close. And green sensors are picking up energy signatures I've never— Oh no." "Oh no, what?" Hunk demanded, his yellow lion banking hard to avoid what looked like small fighter craft with solar panel wings. "Because I've got about 50 oh-nos on my screen right now." "The wormhole didn't just move us through space," Pidge said, her voice tight. "The quantum displacement markers, the dimensional frequency. I think we jumped universes." Alora's voice, regal even in crisis, came through clearly. "We cannot get caught in someone else's conflict. Too late." Keith watched his displays light up with targeting locks. Both fleets, whoever they were, had just decided the Lions were threats. Evasive maneuvers. Do not fire back. We don't know who the good guys are here. The Blue Lion twisted through space with impossible grace, dodging turbo laser fire that would have vaporized a normal starfighter. Keith's piloting instincts, honed through countless battles against the Galactic Empire, adapted instantly to this new battlefield. But something felt wrong. The controls responded differently. Not broken, but changed. Like the laws of physics themselves operated on different rules here. "My weapons are reading at 92% efficiency," Lance reported, his red lion dancing between capital ship fire. "Something about this universe is dampening our systems." "Not dampening, recalibrating," Pidge corrected. "Green Lion's sensors working overtime. The Lions are adapting to local physical constants. Give them time. Time is something we don't have." Hunk's yellow lion took a glancing blow from a lucky vulture droid, shields flaring. "These people really want us dead. Also in Ju 70 another backed. Also in Ju 70. Also in Ju 77. On the Separatist command ship, General Grievous leaned forward, mechanical eyes analyzing the impossible machines. Magnificent, he rasped. Count Dooku, are you observing this? Through a holographic communication, Count Dooku's elegant face betrayed no emotion, but his eyes gleamed with interest. Unknown technology. Powerful beyond our current capabilities. They must not fall into Republic hands. Part. My thoughts exactly. Grievous's hand moved toward the comm. All ships. Concentrate fire on the... Belay that order. Dooku's command cut through sharply. We need them intact. Disable, don't destroy. Lord Sidious will want to examine these. In the Force, Dooku felt it a disturbance unlike anything he'd experienced. Not the light, not the dark. Something else entirely. Ancient and alien. Emanating from those 5 machines like a song in a language the galaxy had forgotten. Keith made the decision in seconds. We can't fight both sides. We need to get out of here now. Form up on me. We're breaking Atmo and finding somewhere to figure this out. The 5 lions responded instantly, their pilot's bond transcending language, universe, or understanding. They'd flown together through hell itself. This was just another battlefield. What they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that in Coruscant's Senate building, thousands of light years away, a hooded figure felt their arrival through the Force and smiled a smile that promised nothing good. The Voltron Force had entered a galaxy at war, and neither side was going to let them leave. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. May the Force be with you. Christophsis' surface offered little sanctuary. The crystal planet's geometric formations created a maze of reflective surfaces that turned the afternoon sun into 1,000 stabbing spotlights. But for 5 pilots trying to hide lion-sized mechs, the crystalline canyons were the best option available after their desperate atmospheric entry. Keith killed Blue's systems to minimum power, watching the sky through his viewport. Red Lion took some fire, but she's holding. Lance's usual bravado was strained. Hull integrity at 87%. I can work with that. Green's fine, but I'm still getting readings that make no sense. Pidge's fingers danced across her console. The energy signatures from those ships, they're not using any propulsion system I recognize. No ion drives, no tachyon emissions. It's like they're bending space itself. Yellow took a beating, but nothing critical. Hunk's voice carried relief. Coming in matter, though I gotta say, those crystal formations are really pretty when they're not reflecting death beams at us. Alora's Red Lion stood sentinel at the canyon entrance. We need to establish our situation. Princess, what are our options for returning home? The silence that followed was answer enough. Pidge, Keith prompted gently, the wormhole that brought us here. It wasn't natural. It wasn't even technological. Pidge's voice dropped. I think it was a quantum anomaly caused by Lotor's reality bombs destabilizing dimensional barriers during our final battle. We got caught in the shockwave and... She trailed off. End quote. And we're stuck. Lance finished flatly. I didn't say that, but you didn't say we're not stuck. Before the argument could escalate, Green Lion's sensors screamed a warning. Multiple contacts incoming. 3 ships, smaller craft, but fast. Through the Force, Anakin Skywalker felt them before his scanners registered their presence. 5 points of, not darkness, not light. Void spaces where the Force should flow but didn't, like holes in the cosmic fabric. Ahsoka. You feel that? He guided his customized Jedi starfighter through Christophsis' crystal canyons. His Padawan flying wing in her own fighter. I feel it, Master. Ahsoka Tano's voice carried teenage confidence wrapped around genuine unease. It's like they're empty, but not dead. Just not from here. Rex, hold position at the canyon entrance. Anakin ordered through his comm. We don't know if they're hostile. With respect, General. Captain Rex's measured tone came back. They crashed through an active battle. Pretty sure they're hostile to someone. Or they're just lost. Anakin dropped his fighter into the canyon. Crystal walls blurring past. Let's find out which, before we start shooting. Keith saw them on approach, two sleek fighters and what looked like a troop transport. Nothing like the Galactic Empire's brutalist TIE fighters. We've got company. Weapons to stand by. But do not engage unless fired upon. Keith, we don't even know what these people want, Lance argued, which is exactly why we're not shooting first. Keith opened Blue Lion's external speakers. They'd need to establish communication somehow. Let's hope universal translators work across universes. 1. Anakin brought his fighter to a hover 50 meters from the Blue Lion, studying it through his canopy. The machine was beautiful alien technology wrapped in form that suggested intelligence, purpose, maybe even consciousness. Its eyes glowed with soft blue light that reminded him uncomfortably of kyber crystals. He opened a standard Republic.com channel. Unknown vessels. This is Jedi General Anakin Skywalker of the Galactic Republic. You've entered a restricted military zone during wartime. Power down your weapons and identify yourselves. Inside Blue Lion, Keith nearly laughed at hearing a language he understood. Did the Lion translate that? Or, Lions have adaptive linguistic protocols, Alora explained quickly. They're translating both ways. Respond, Keith, carefully. Keith activated his comm. We're just trying to figure out where we are. Anakin exchanged glances with Ahsoka through their cockpit canopies. The voice sounded young, human, and genuinely confused, not the calculated speech of a separatist infiltrator. You're on Christophsis, Outer Rim territories, Anakin replied. But you knew that already if you came through hyperspace to get here. So let's try again who sent you. And what's your real purpose? Hyperspace? Pidge muttered. Is that what they call their FTL here? Keith chose honesty. What choice did they have? We don't know what hyperspace is. We came through a dimensional rift. We're not from your galaxy, General. We're from somewhere else entirely. The silence on the other end stretched long enough to be uncomfortable. On his fighter, Anakin felt Obi-Wan's presence through their training bond. Distant, but urgent. His former master was in the battle above, likely dealing with the separatist fleet that had suddenly become very interested in whatever those 5 machines were. Dimensional rift, Ahsoka said skeptically on their private channel. Master, that's not possible. Neither are 5 mechanical lions appearing out of nowhere during a space battle, Snips. Anakin made a decision. The Force wasn't screaming danger at him, and he'd learned to trust those instincts. Unknown pilot Keith, I'm coming in to land. We need to talk face to face. If you're telling the truth about being lost, the Republic can help. If you're lying... He didn't finish the threat. And it never flashro. Communiat Paris Sebeni. To do the Menikamstad. We're not lying, Keith said firmly. Land your ship. We'll meet you outside. Minutes later, Keith stood on Christophsis' crystal surface, flanked by Lance and Alora, watching 2 figures approach. The male was young, maybe a few years older than Keith, with sandy hair and robes that seemed impractical for military service. He moved with unconscious confidence, hand resting near a metal cylinder at his belt. The female was younger, maybe 16, with orange skin and white facial markings. Her head-tails montrals, some distant part of Keith's brain supplied, gave her an alien appearance that reminded him they were very far from home. Both carried those same metal cylinders. Weapons? Keith guessed. I'm Anakin Skywalker, the man said, stopping 10 meters away. This is my Padawan, Ahsoka Tano. You're really claiming you're not from this galaxy? Not claiming. Stating fact. Allura stepped forward, her presence regal despite her pilot's suit. I am Princess Allura of Altia. These are paladins Keith and Lance. Our companions Pidge and Hunk remain with our lions in case this is a trap. Anakin's hand didn't move toward his lightsaber, but Ahsoka noticed his posture shift slightly. Princess of where? A planet you've never heard of, Allura said quietly. In a galaxy you'll never see. We were fighting a war of our own when we were displaced. The wind whistled through crystal formations. Somewhere above, the space battle continued without them. Displaced. Anakin repeated. He reached out through the Force, trying to sense deception. Found only confusion, exhaustion, and desperate hope. By what? We call it a wormhole, Keith said. A tier in space-time. We've used them for faster-than-light travel before. But this one, it didn't just move us through space. It threw us somewhere completely different. Ahsoka's montrals twitched, sensing something. Master, there's something in those machines. Energy I've never felt before. We found some goddess's water. Energy I've never felt before. It's not the Force, but it's... She struggled for words. Quintessence, Allura supplied. The essence of life itself, concentrated and refined. It powers our lions and allows the formation of Voltron. Voltron? Anakin's eyes narrowed. The ultimate weapon against universal tyranny, Lance said, then caught himself. Well, it was in our universe. Here, we don't even know the players yet. Anakin studied them 3 young warriors, wearing genuine confusion and battle fatigue like armor. His instincts, honed through 3 years of brutal war, told him they were telling the truth, which meant the situation was far more complicated than separatist infiltrators or Republic deserters. We need to get you to Coruscant, Anakin decided. The Jedi Council needs to see this. Your machines, your story, if you're telling the truth, you represent technology and power that could change this war. We're not weapons for hire, Keith said sharply. I didn't say you were. Anakin met his gaze levelly. But you crashed into our war. That makes you part of it whether you want to be or not. Both sides saw what your machines can do. The Separatists will hunt you. And the Republic. He paused, choosing words carefully. The Republic will want to understand what you are. Before anyone could respond, Rex's voice crackled urgently through Anakin's comm. General, we've got Separatist dropships incoming. Multiple signatures. Looks like a full assault force. Anakin's hand snapped to his lightsaber. How long? 3 minutes, sir. They're coming in hot. Keith looked back at Blue Lion, then at Anakin. We're not ready to fight in your war. Then you'd better get ready fast, Ahsoka said, her own lightsaber leaping into her hand with the snap hiss of igniting plasma. Because the war just found you. The Jedi Temple on Coruscant had stood for 1,000 generations, a monument to peace, knowledge, and the light side of the Force. Its council chamber had witnessed debates about galactic policy, philosophical discussions spanning centuries, and judgments that shaped the course of civilizations. But the 5 holographic images projected in its center images of 5 mechanical lions that shouldn't exist had reduced the High Council to rare silence. Master Yoda's ears twitched as he studied the data. Disturbed, the Force is. These machines, from beyond our galaxy they claim to be. Claim being the operative word, Mace Windu said, his deep voice carrying skepticism. Master Skywalker, you confirm these pilots are human? Anakin's hologram nodded from Christophsis. 3 humans. 1 Altian. That's what Princess Allura called her species. The raw possible. Ah ma. The raw possible. The raw possible. Ah ma. 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 They're not force sensitive, but their machines emit some kind of energy that feels adjacent to the Force, like an echo in a language we don't speak. Obi-Wan Kenobi stroked his beard thoughtfully. A dimensional rift, you said. In 3 years of war, We've seen many separatist weapons, but nothing like this. Because it's not a weapon, Anakin insisted. Master, I've spent 2 days with them. They're confused, displaced, and desperately trying to understand where they are. Their story matches their emotional state. Either they're the galaxy's best actors, or they're telling the truth. Truth or deception matters less than capability, Mace Windu countered. You reported their machines have firepower equivalent to capital ships. That makes them weapons whether they choose to be or not. Plo Koon's mask distorted his voice slightly. The Separatists launched 3 assaults to capture them in 2 days. Count Dooku himself has reportedly taken interest. That alone tells us their value. In the Chancellor's office, high above the Senate district, Palpatine watched the same intelligence reports with hooded eyes. Mas Amedda stood at attention while the Chancellor's fingers drummed a slow rhythm against his desk. Quintessence, Palpatine murmured, savoring the word. An energy that exists outside the Force. How? Intriguing. The Jedi Council debates what to do with them, Mas Amedda reported. Master Yoda recommends isolating them until their intentions become clear. And Skywalker vouches for them, my lord. He believes they're genuine refugees. Palpatine's smile was thin. Anakin always did have a soft spot for lost souls, but these particular lost souls represent an unpredictable variable in a very carefully balanced equation. He turned to face Coruscant's skyline. Variables must be controlled, Mas Amedda, or eliminated. Shall I instruct the Council to? No. Palpatine's tone sharpened. Let the Jedi bumble forward with their debates and philosophy. I have other assets better suited for this task. He activated a secure channel. Get me Cad Bane. Get me Cad Bane. Get me Cad Bane. Get me Cad Bane. Inside the temple's hangar, Keith stood beneath Blue Lion's imposing form. Watching Jedi technicians scan the Lion's hull with devices that hummed and beeped incomprehensibly, the technicians kept glancing nervously at the machine, as if expecting it to move without a pilot. They're treating the Lions like they're alive, Pidge observed, her green lion positioned protectively nearby. She'd refused to let anyone enter without her direct supervision. Maybe they can sense it somehow. The Force, Allura said quietly. She stood apart from the others, watching Jedi Knights move through the hangar with that distinctive fluid grace. The energy they wield. I've been analyzing it through red sensors. It's remarkable. Similar to quintessence in some ways, but intrinsically tied to living beings. They're all connected through it. Lance sprawled against Red Lion's paw, arms behind his head in studied casualness that didn't fool anyone. So we crashed into a galaxy where psychic space wizards fight a robot army with laser swords. Cool. Cool, cool, cool. Totally normal. Nothing about this is normal, Hunk said from where he sat near Yellow Lion. A ration bar from the Jedi commissary in hand. He'd been stress-eating since they arrived. We're trapped in another universe, in the middle of someone else's war, and both sides want our lions. This is the opposite of normal. We're not trapped, Pidge insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. I just need time to study the dimensional coordinates from the rift, analyze the quantum signature, maybe build a what, Pidge? Keith turned to face her. We don't even understand the physics here yet. Green Lion is still recalibrating its systems. We're operating at 95% capacity, which means we're missing 5% of something we might desperately need. It's not about capacity, it's about compatibility, Pidge argued. The Lions are adapting to local physical laws. Give them another week and they'll be fully integrated with this universe's quantum framework. We may not have a week. Allura's voice carried quiet authority. Every hour we remain here, we learn more about this galaxy's war. The Republic, fighting for democracy against separatist systems. The Jedi Order, peacekeepers forced into military service. And behind it all, she paused, uncomfortable. There's something wrong here. Something the Force users don't seem to see. Keith felt it too. A wrongness he couldn't articulate. You think someone's manipulating them? And not caress. One comment. I think this war feels too orchestrated. Like someone's playing both sides. Alora met his gaze. Zarkon did the same thing with the coalition governments before he revealed his true agenda. Manufactured conflicts that made everyone dependent on his solutions. Their conversation died as Anakin approached, his robes swirling around him. Behind him walked a shorter figure. Green skin, large eyes, walking stick in hand. Master Yoda. Even Keith recognized the legendary Jedi from the historical briefings Anakin had provided. Paladins, Yoda greeted, his ancient eyes studying each of them in turn. Speak with you, the council would. Decided, we have what to do with your presence here. Keith straightened. We don't need the council's permission to exist, Master Yoda. Exist you may, wherever you wish, Yoda said mildly. But park 5 warships in the Jedi Temple. You cannot do without consequence. Decide you must stand with the Republic as allies, or leave Coruscant and find your own path in this galaxy. You're asking us to join your war, Lance said flatly. Asking nothing, I am, Yoda corrected. Explaining reality, I am. Hidden, you cannot remain. Known to separatists, your power is. Hunt you, they will. Wherever you go, safety. You will find only an alliance or strength enough to stand alone. Alora stepped forward. Master Yoda, we've already fought one war for our galaxy. We sacrificed everything to defeat a tyrant who wanted to rule through fear and power. We're not eager to volunteer for another galaxy's conflict when we don't understand the stakes. Understand the stakes, you do not? Yoda's ears drooped slightly. Right. You may be. Understand this war. Even we do not fully. Clear. The path forward is not. But choosing neutrality, that too is a choice, and consequences it carries. Anakin shifted uncomfortably. The Council's decision is to grant you sanctuary here for now. But Master Yoda's right, you can't hide. The Senate knows about you. Half of Coruscant saw your lions land. And Count Dooku. He paused. He's not going to stop trying to acquire your technology. Who is Count Dooku? Keith asked. Everyone keeps mentioning him like he's the bogeyman. He's a former Jedi, Anakin said, and Keith heard genuine pain in his voice. One of the greatest. He left the Order years ago, became disillusioned with the Republic. Now he leads the separatist military forces. Brilliant, powerful, and very dangerous. A fallen hero turned villain, Hunk said quietly. Know it. You may, Yoda said. But understand the pain of it. Perhaps you do not. Lost many friends to this war, we have. Trust easily, we cannot, even those who seem genuine. His gaze softened slightly. But trust in Skywalker's judgment, I do. If refugees you are, help you, the Republic will. If weapons you seek to become, guide you, the Jedi will not. Before Keith could respond, alarms screamed through the hangar. Jedi reached for lightsabers with practiced precision. Clone troopers appeared from secondary entrances, weapons raised. Anakin's comm erupted with urgent chatter. His face went tight as he listened. Master Yoda, we've got multiple breaches in the temple's security perimeter. Someone's attacking. The hangar's main entrance exploded inward. Through the smoke came figures in armor, not clone troopers, not droids, bounty hunters, heavily armed, moving with professional precision. Leading them, a figure in a wide-brimmed hat moved with reptilian grace. Dual blaster pistols already firing. Cad Bane. Anakin snarled, his lightsaber igniting with that distinctive snap-hiss sound. You've got nerve attacking the temple. Just doing a job. Skywalker. Bane's raspy voice drawled. He fired twice stun rounds that dropped 2 Jedi Knights before they could react. Clients want those pretty machines. Figure, I'll take the pilots too. Easier than cracking your security later. Keith moved instantly. Years of combat training overriding shock. Paladins, to your lions, Now. But Bane's team was already moving. Thermal detonators flying toward the Lion's positions, grappling lines shooting upward to hangar supports. They'd planned this assault with military precision. Separate them from their machines, Bane ordered. Target the pilots. Blue Lion roared a sound that shouldn't come from a mechanical construct, echoing with otherworldly resonance that made even the bounty hunters hesitate. Keith felt the bond surge, connection deeper than telepathy, stronger than any comm system. Blue's mouth opened. Energy gathered, quintessence responding to Keith's desperate need. "Everyone down!" Anakin shouted. The blast that erupted from Blue Lion's mouth wasn't like turbolaser fire. Blue-white energy that vaporized Bane's thermal detonators mid-flight and sent 3 bounty hunters tumbling backward, their armor smoking. Cad Bane whistled low. "Now that's what I call a guard dog." Keith was already moving toward Blue, Lance sprinting for Red, the other paladins scattering toward their lions. But Bane's team adapted fast. Rocket boots fired. Grappling lines retracted. Positions shifted to cut off approach vectors. Ahsoka's lightsabers became twin blurs, deflecting blaster bolts with practiced efficiency. "Master, they're using non-lethal rounds. They want prisoners. They're not getting them." Anakin launched himself forward, Force-enhanced speed carrying him across the hangar in heartbeats. His lightsaber carved through a bounty hunter's weapon, then swept low to disable without killing. But Cad Bane hadn't earned his reputation through stupidity. While Jedi engaged his team, he moved toward Pidge, who'd become separated from Green Lion by falling debris. "You're the smart one, yeah?" Bane's blaster pointed at her head. "See how smart you are when your friends gotta choose between their fancy toys and your life." Pidge didn't freeze. Her hand snapped to her bayard, the Altion weapon materializing and transforming in one smooth motion into its grappling configuration. Bane fired. Green Lion moved. The mechanical beast crossed 30 meters in a second, its massive paw interposing between Pidge and the blast. "Okay," Bane said slowly, realization dawning. "So the machines got minds of their own. That changes things." Master Yoda's voice cut through chaos like a blade. "Leave now. You will, Cad Bane. Or leave in pieces. You shall." The ancient Jedi Master stood barely waist-high to most beings present, but something in his stance made Bane, who'd faced down Jedi Knights and lived to tell about it, take a step back. "This ain't over," Bane said. "Clients pay well for determination." His hat brim tilted toward Keith. "Real well for machines that powerful. See you around, Paladin." Smoke grenades detonated. When the clouds cleared, Bane and his surviving team were gone, likely using some pre-planned escape route that bypassed temple security. Anakin lowered his lightsaber, breathing hard. "Everyone all right?" "Define all right," Lance said shakily. "Because my definition's gotten real flexible lately." Keith stood beneath Blue Lion's protective stance, one hand against the massive paw. The lion had moved to save Pidge on its own. They'd bonded across dimensions, across universes, and that bond had just proven it transcended even the fundamental laws of reality. Master Yoda approached slowly. "Chosen your side. It seems you have." "We chose to defend ourselves," Keith said carefully. "In war," Yoda said quietly. "Same thing. That often is. Attack the temple. They did. To take you. Use you as weapons. They will try again. Many times. Until captured you are, or protected you become." Alora looked at the damage. The injured Jedi being tended to. The scorch marks on the sacred hangar floor. "This is my fault. We brought danger to your doorstep." "Brought danger? You did not," Yoda countered. "Opportunity for our enemies, your arrival became. Responsibility for this galaxy's conflicts, you do not bear. But affected by them, you will be, regardless of choice." Keith met his teammates' eyes one by one. Saw Lance's grim acceptance, Pidge's analytical calculation, Hunk's worried determination, Alora's regal resolve. "We need time," Keith said finally. "Time to figure out how to get home." Time to understand this galaxy. But until then, he looked up at Blue Lion, then back at Master Yoda. We'll defend ourselves, and we'll help those who need defending. That's what paladins do. Perhaps, Yoda said, and something like approval glinted in his ancient eyes. True paladins, you are. But prepared for what comes next, you must be. Noticed you, the dark side has, and attention from darkness. Dangerous thing, that is. Far beneath Coruscant's glittering surface, in a private chamber known to very few, Darth Sidious watched holographic footage of the temple attack, watched Blue Lion move with impossible speed to protect its pilot, watched quintessence energy blast through the hangar with power that had nothing to do with the Force. Fascinating, he murmured. They bond with their machines, not through technology but through something deeper, almost like the Jedi bond with their kyber crystals. But he leaned forward, stronger, more primal. His yellow eyes gleamed beneath his hood. Cad Bane failed, as I expected he would. But failure provides information. Now we know the lions are sentient, protective, and capable of independent action. Which means the pilots are not the only threat. He considered his options. The Voltron Force represented chaos, unpredictable, powerful chaos that could destabilize carefully laid plans stretching across decades. They needed to be controlled, corrupted, or eliminated. And Darth Sidious had not conquered a galaxy by allowing variables to roam free. Dooku, he said, opening a secure channel. I have a new assignment for you. One that requires delicacy. These paladins are young, idealistic, and far from home. They seek guidance, purpose. His smile was cold. Show them the Republic's failures. Let them see the Jedi's hypocrisy. And when they're sufficiently disillusioned, we offer them a place in the New Order, Dooku's cultured voice finished. Very well, my master. Shall I begin immediately? Yes, but Dooku, do not underestimate them. They defeated an empire in their own galaxy. They are dangerous precisely because they are competent. Which is why, if they cannot be turned, they must be destroyed before they interfere further. The hologram flickered out, leaving Sidious alone with his thoughts and the distant sounds of Coruscant's eternal night. The Voltron Force had entered the Clone Wars, and the Clone Wars would never be the same. The planet Ryloth burned beneath twin suns while its people suffered. Separatist occupation had transformed the Twi'lek homeworld into a nightmare of oppression, civilian executions, resource extraction, and the casual cruelty that came when droid armies followed orders without conscience. The Republic's relief fleet had been delayed by 3 days due to strategic repositioning, which meant 3 more days of atrocities that would haunt survivors forever. Count Dooku watched the humanitarian disaster unfold from his Providence-class carrier with calculated interest. Not because he enjoyed suffering despite his fall to the dark side. He retained certain aristocratic standards, but because suffering created opportunity. General Grievous, Dooku said smoothly, his holographic form addressing the cyborg general. How soon until the Republic fleet arrives? 18 hours, my lord, Grievous's mechanical voice grated with anticipation. Admiral Yularen's Venator group is approaching through the Corellian Run. Shall I prepare defenses? No. Dooku's smile was thin. In fact, ensure our blockade has a convenient weakness. Make it appear we've overextended our perimeter near the northern approach vector. Grievous's eyes narrowed with understanding. A trap. Not precisely. An invitation. Dooku clasped his hands behind his back. Intelligence suggests young Skywalker will accompany the relief fleet. And where Skywalker goes, away. All of Ranger, away. The Voltron Force follows. Grievous finished. You believe they'll come to Ryloth? 1. I believe they're idealists, trapped in a galaxy they don't understand, seeking purpose and meaning. Dooku's voice carried that cultured, paternal tone that had once made him the Jedi Order's greatest diplomat. What better purpose than saving innocence? We simply need to ensure they witness Ryloth's suffering at precisely the right moment. On Coruscant, in the Temple's war room, that exact conversation was playing out with different words, but similar conclusions. The Twi'leks are dying, Ahsoka said urgently, pointing to casualty reports streaming across the holo display. Master, we have to go now. Every hour we debate strategy is another hour those people suffer. Anakin's jaw was tight. Admiral Yularen's fleet needs 48 hours to resupply and reorganize after the Molostar campaign. We can't just rush in without proper planning. Yes, I know, Ahsoka's frustration showed. But the planning is what's killing them. By the time we arrive in force, half of Blyla's population will be dead or enslaved. Keith had been standing quietly in the corner of the war room, observing the Republic's military leadership argue over tactics and logistics while people died. It reminded him uncomfortably of the coalition debates during the war against Zarkon good people, trapped in systems too slow to match evil's urgency. How long would it take your lions to reach Ryloth? He asked quietly. The room went silent. Anakin turned, surprise flickering across his face. Keith, you're not seriously suggesting 5 ships, fast, heavily armed, capable of atmosphere-to-space operations. Keith met Anakin's eyes. We could be there in hours instead of days. Scout the situation, maybe even start evacuation operations for the most vulnerable populations. You're talking about flying into an active war zone in a hostile system, Obi-Wan Kenobi said from the holo display. The bearded Jedi Master was commanding Republic forces in another sector, but he'd been included in the strategic briefing. The Separatist blockade will target you the moment you emerge from hyperspace. Then they'll target us. Lance's voice came from where he leaned against the wall, arms crossed. We've faced worse odds. Remember the Battle of Naxella? 50 Galra ships and a planet-killer bomb? This is a Tuesday for us. In your universe, Mace Windu said sharply. You don't know this galaxy's tactics, technology, or threats. Overconfidence will get you killed. Sitting here while people die isn't confidence. It's cowardice, Pidge said bluntly. Her fingers danced across her datapad, pulling up Ryloth's orbital mechanics. Green sensors could map the Separatist fleet disposition in minutes. We'd provide tactical intelligence for the main Republic assault, even if we couldn't engage directly. Hunk raised his hand hesitantly. Just want to point out that the last 3 times we rushed into quick reconnaissance missions, we ended up fighting for our lives against overwhelming odds. Not saying we shouldn't go, just noting the pattern. The pattern, Allura said quietly, studying the civilian casualty projections, is that when we hesitate, people die. When we act, we give them a chance. Her eyes lifted to meet Anakin's. General Skywalker, would the Republic authorize a forward reconnaissance mission? Anakin looked to Mace Windu, who looked to Yoda's hologram. The ancient Jedi Master had been silent throughout the debate, eyes closed in meditation. Now he opened them. Send them, we should not, Yoda said slowly. Their fight, this is not. Their war, they did not choose. The disappointment was palpable. Keith felt it like a physical weight. But choose it now, they do, Yoda continued. Stop them, we cannot. Authorize their mission, we should not. But prevent them from acting according to their conscience. He paused. That, the Jedi way is not. It was, Keith recognized, political cover. The Council couldn't officially sanction the mission, but they wouldn't stop it either. If the Paladin succeeded, the Republic gained tactical advantage. If they failed, if you're killed, the Lions fall into Separatist hands, Mace Windu said bluntly. That technology in Dooku's possession could shift the entire war. Then we won't get killed, Lance said with more confidence than Keith felt. We're pretty good at that. We're pretty good at that. Anakin stepped forward, decision crystallizing. And how to explain to the Council why you disobeyed orders. Obi-Wan's hologram arched an eyebrow. Anakin, this is exactly the kind of impulsive, People are dying, Obi-Wan. Right now. While we debate. Anakin's voice carried barely controlled frustration. You taught me that the Force guides us toward where we're needed. Well, I'm needed at Ryloth. So are they. The two Jedi locked eyes across the holographic connection. Finally, Obi-Wan sighed. You're going regardless of what I say. Aren't you? Yes. Then at least take Ahsoka. Someone needs to ensure you don't do anything too reckless. Hey, Ahsoka protested, though her grin betrayed excitement. I'm supposed to be the reckless one. Not anymore, Anakin said dryly. Keith just claimed that title. Paladins, prep your lions. We launch in 2 hours. As the war room cleared, Master Yoda gestured for Keith to remain. The ancient Jedi studied him with eyes that had witnessed 1,000 years of galactic history. Understand, do you? What you begin? Yoda asked quietly. Act in Ryloth. You will. Save lives. Perhaps many. But establish a precedent. You do. Involved in our war, you become. Turn back from that path, you cannot easily. Keith thought of Zarkon's empire, of planets enslaved and civilizations destroyed while bureaucrats debated intervention. Thought of the moment he'd chosen to become a paladin not because it was easy, but because it was necessary. Master Yoda, we spent years fighting to free our galaxy from tyranny. Maybe that was destiny, maybe it was chance, but we did it because no one else could. He met the Jedi Master's gaze. If we can help here, how can we not try? Help, you can. Question is, help whom? Yoda's ears twitched. Many sides to this war. There are. Many agendas, many secrets. Trust easily, you should not, even those who seem righteous. And Count Dooku. Yoda paused. Underestimate him, you must not. Powerful, he is. Cunning. And very interested in you, he has become. We fought powerful enemies before. Fought them in your galaxy, you did. Where you understood the rules, the stakes, the nature of power itself. Yoda's voice carried warning. Here, playing a game you do not fully grasp, you are. Excellent player of games. He is. Keith wanted to argue, but something in Yoda's tone made him pause. You think this is a trap. Think that everything is a trap. I do, until proven otherwise, Yoda said. Survived 1,000 years by assuming nothing and preparing for everything. I have. Advice to you, young paladin. Trust in your team. Trust in your machines. But trust in your enemy's intelligence as well. Count Dooku did not become the separatist leader through stupidity. I'll remember that. Remember this too. Yoda's gaze intensified. The dark side. Subtle it can be. Offers, it makes, wrapped in logic and compassion. Easy path it presents, while righteous path requires sacrifice. He paused. Tested. You will be. Perhaps sooner than you think. 6 hours later, the Voltron Force emerged from hyperspace at Ryloth's edge, their Lion system screaming warnings about the Separatist blockade. But Keith's attention was fixed on the planet below, on the smoke rising from burning cities, on the orbital platforms where captured Twi'leks were being loaded into slave ships, on the casual cruelty of droids executing civilians whose only crime was being in the wrong place during a war they never asked for. Oh man, Hunk whispered. It's just like Balmoron enslavement all over again. Separatist forces detect us, Pidge reported, Green Lion sensors painting targets across her display. 20 frigates, 40 Vulture droid fighters, and 1 Providence-class carrier. They're moving to intercept. Anakin's voice came through their comms, his Jedi starfighter flanking Blue Lion. The carrier is Dooku's flagship. He's here personally. Why? Lance asked. This seems like a small operation for their military leader. Because he knew we'd come, Allura realized. This whole situation, it's designed to draw us out. Doesn't matter, Keith said. His hands moved across Blue's controls, feeling the Lion respond to his intentions. Trap or not, those people need help. Paladins, you all know the mission. Hit the slave transports first. Disable, not destroy. We evacuate as many civilians as possible while Anakin calls in the main Republic fleet. Questions? Just one, Lance said. When this all goes sideways, because it will, do we have an exit strategy? Exit strategy is we form Voltron and punch through anything that tries to stop us. That's not an exit strategy. That's aggressive optimism. It's worked so far. On the Providence-class carrier's bridge, General Grievous watched the 5 Lions accelerate toward Ryloth with hungry anticipation. They're moving to attack the slave transports. Predictable. Predictably heroic, Count Dooku corrected, which is precisely what makes them manipulable. Deploy the Tri-Fighters. Make them work for it, but ensure they reach the transports. I want them committed to evacuation operations when I make my approach. And if they form Voltron, then we learn what combined quintessence energy truly looks like. Dooku's smile was cold. Either way, we gain valuable intelligence. And perhaps if I'm persuasive enough, we gain something far more valuable than intelligence. The Paladins themselves, Grievous rasped. I believe they're young, idealistic, and increasingly disillusioned with a republic that debates while innocents die. I believe they see shades of their previous enemy in our current enemy. Dooku activated his lightsaber, red blade humming to life. And I believe that every idealist eventually learns that good intentions aren't enough, that sometimes to save what matters, you must embrace harder truths, the dark side. Progress. Dooku corrected. But first, let's see what our Paladins are truly made of. Launch all fighters. Engage when ready. Blue Lion's mouth opened. Quintessence gathered. Blue-white energy, responding to Keith's determination and rage at the suffering below. For Ryloth, Keith said quietly. The blast that erupted from Blue Lion lit up space like a newborn star, vaporizing the first wave of Tri-Fighters and announcing to every being in the system that the Voltron Force had entered the battle. And somewhere in the Force, Darth Sidious felt the ripples of that announcement and smiled. The battle for Ryloth's orbital space transformed into chaos within seconds. Blue Lion carved through Separatist formations like a blade through water, Keith's piloting instincts adapting to the combat faster than even he expected. Red Lion danced between vulture droids, Lance's precision shooting disabling engines without destroying cockpit's force of habit from fighting Galra soldiers who could be saved. Green Lion's sensors painted the battlefield in perfect clarity, Pidge feeding tactical data to every member of the team simultaneously. Yellow Lion's heavy armor absorbed fire meant for the more nimble Lions, Hunk protecting his team with the same fierce loyalty that had defined him since day one. And Red Lion Alora's Red Lion moved with regal precision, each strike calculated for maximum effectiveness. But this wasn't the Galra Empire. This was something stranger. These droids don't retreat. Lance's voice carried surprise as another wave of vulture fighters threw themselves at his position with mechanical determination. They're not evaluating risk, they just keep coming. They're programmed that way, Anakin explained, his starfighter weaving through the combat with force-enhanced reflexes. His R2 unit beeped frantically as another near-miss scorched their hull. Tactical droids calculate acceptable losses. Individual units are expendable assets. That's horrible, Hunk said, even as Yellow Lion's shoulder cannon obliterated a Tri-Fighter attempting to kamikaze into his position. I know they're droids, but still no regard for their own existence? Welcome to the Clone Wars. Ahsoka's voice cut in. Her starfighter flanked Anakin's. The two Jedi moving in practiced synchronization, where both sides treat their soldiers as disposable. At least the Separatists use droids. The Republic uses, she caught herself, uncomfortable truth dying on her lips. Uses clone soldiers, Pidge finished quietly, her sensors having mapped the Republic fleet's composition during their briefing. Artificially created humans, bred for combat, aged to maturity in years instead of decades. Essentially biological droids with human emotions. The silence on the comm was heavy. It's not like that, Anakin said, but his voice lacked conviction. The clones choose to fight. They're patriots, volunteers. They're manufactured with patriotism built into their genetic code, Pidge countered. That's not choice, General Skywalker. That's programming. Keith heard the tension building and cut it off. Philosophical debate later. Right now, we've got 6 slave transports trying to jump to hyperspace. Pidge, can you jam their navigation? Already on it. Green's disrupting their hyperspace calculations. They're not going anywhere. Pidge's voice carried grim satisfaction. But we've got a problem. Those transports have civilian crews mixed with droids. If we damage them too much, we'll kill the people we're trying to save. Then we board them, Keith decided. Lance, Hunk, you're with me. Allura, Pidge, cover our approach and keep the fighters off us. Keith, those are hostile vessels, Anakin warned. You'll be fighting through security droids in close quarters. Your lions can't help you inside. Then it's a good thing we're not just pilots. Keith felt Blue Lion respond to his determination. The connection between them had grown stronger since arriving in this galaxy, as if the lion itself was evolving to meet new challenges. Paladins, Bayards, ready. We're doing this the old-fashioned way. Blue Lion's mouth opened not to fire, but to extend a boarding tunnel. Altian technology adapting to create a breachable seal against the slave transport's hull. Keith felt the magnetic locks engage, felt Blue's consciousness reassuring him even as he prepared to leave the cockpit. I'm coming with you, Anakin said. You'll need someone who knows ship layouts and can handle battle droids, and someone who can cut through blast doors with a laser sword, Lance added. No offense, but our Bayards are great, but that lightsaber thing you've got is pretty handy. Inside the slave transport, protocol droid TC-38 registered the hull breach with the calm efficiency of a machine facing inevitable destruction. This is most irregular. The battle droids surrounding the captured Twi'lek civilians raised their blasters toward the breach point. Vocabulators producing mechanical chatter. Intruder alert. Defensive positions. Protect the cargo. We're not cargo. 1. Twi'lek, a female with scarred leku that spoke of previous suffering, stood despite her restraints. We're people. Negative. The lead battle droid responded. You are inventory. Inventory does not have opinions. The breach completed. Keith came through first, Bayard materializing into its sword configuration, energy blade humming with quintessence power. He moved like water, training from Voltron's countless battles, translating seamlessly to this new combat. His blade severed a battle droid's arm before it could fire, then continued through its torso in one fluid motion. Lance followed, Bayard in rifle mode, picking off droids with precision shots that would have made any sniper jealous. Man, these things are fragile compared to sentries. It's like shooting training dummies. Don't get cocky, Anakin warned, his lightsaber carving through 3 droids in rapid succession. The Jedi moved with impossible grace, the Force guiding his movements a split second before danger arrived. There are a lot more where these came from. Hunk's Bayard transformed into its massive cannon configuration. Yeah, notice that. We've got reinforcements coming up through the lower deck. Want me to seal it? Do it. The explosion that followed sealed the corridor, but also rocked the entire transport. Alarms screamed. Somewhere, a reactor whined dangerously. Hunk, Keith shouted. I said seal it, not demolish it. It's sealed, isn't it? The Twi'lek civilians stared at their rescuers with expressions mixing hope and terror. The scarred female spoke carefully. You're not Republic military. Who are you? We're the Voltron Force, Keith said, his Bayard cutting through her restraints. And we're getting you out of here. Voltron? She tested the word. Never heard of you. You will, Lance said with a grin, freeing more prisoners. Trust me, everyone always remembers us eventually. Outside, the battle had intensified. Count Dooku watched from his carrier's bridge as the remaining 4 lions defended the transport with coordinated precision that spoke of years fighting together. Their teamwork transcended communication. They anticipated each other's moves, covered vulnerabilities without being asked, created openings that others exploited instantly. Magnificent, Dooku murmured. General Grievous, what's your assessment? The cyborg general's eyes tracked combat data with predatory focus. They fight like Jedi, anticipating attacks, moving as one. But their power source is different. Stronger. More. Primal. Quintessence, Dooku said. Life energy given form. And they wield it without even realizing its potential. He activated his comm. All ships. Pull back. Create a corridor for the transport to escape. Grievous turned sharply. My lord, if we let them rescue those prisoners, then they'll trust us a little less and themselves a little more, Dooku interrupted smoothly. We're not trying to defeat them, Grievous. We're trying to educate them. And the first lesson they need to learn is that the Republic's methods are slow, bureaucratic, and inadequate, while our methods are effective, immediate, and demonstrate that we, unlike the Republic, understand the pragmatic application of power. Dooku smiled thinly. Let them save 500 civilians. Let them feel like heroes. And then when the Republic fleet arrives and I explain exactly why those civilians were prisoners in the first place, we'll see how heroic they feel. Inside the transport, Keith had reached the bridge. The Neimoidian captain cowered behind his chair, hands raised in surrender. Please, don't kill me. I'm just following orders. Orders to enslave people? Keith's voice was cold. His Bayard pressed against the captain's chest. Who gave those orders? Quote, 80 remender. Keith's voice was cold against the captain's chest. The Separatist Council. They demanded labor for the foundries on Geonosis. We're at war. The Confederacy needs resources. So you take people from their homes and force them into slavery? Lance had entered behind Keith, rifle trained on the Neimoidian. Yeah. We've heard that excuse before. It didn't work for Zarkon either. Anakin pushed past them, moving to the helm. The Separatist fleet is pulling back. They're opening an escape corridor. That's suspicious, Keith said immediately. Why would they let us go? Because Count Dooku wants you to escape, Anakin replied grimly. He's playing a longer game, but right now, I don't care about his strategy. We've got 500 civilians who need evacuation. He activated the transport's engines. Paladins, return to your lines. We're moving this transport back to Republic lines. Keith wanted to argue, wanted to understand the trap before walking into it. But the Twi'lek civilians were already being herded toward escape pods, already thanking their rescuers, with tears streaming down their faces. Whatever Dooku's game was, Keith couldn't leave these people behind. Acknowledged, Keith said, moving back to blue. As the Paladins returned to their lions and the transport limped toward safety, Pidge's voice cut through the comm. Keith, I'm picking up something weird. The Separatist carrier is broadcasting on an open channel, directed specifically at us. What kind of broadcast? Audio only. It's Count Dooku. He wants to talk. Keith's hands tightened on Blue's controls. Master Yoda's warning echoed in his mind. Underestimate him. You must not. Patch him through, Keith decided. The voice that filled their cockpits was cultured, refined, almost professorial. Count Dooku spoke like someone delivering a lecture to promising students, rather than enemies on a battlefield. Paladins of Voltron, Dooku began. Allow me to properly introduce myself. I am Count Dooku of Sereno, leader of the Confederacy of Independent Systems, and I must confess I am impressed by your performance today. 500 lives saved through courage and skill. The galaxy needs more beings willing to act decisively in the face of injustice. Cut to it, Keith said tersely. You didn't open a channel to compliment us. A soft chuckle. Direct. I appreciate that. Very well. I wished to explain something the Republic won't tell you. Those civilians you just rescued? They weren't randomly enslaved. They're political prisoners. Ryloth's government sided with the Separatists, you see, until the Republic invaded and installed a puppet regime. Those innocent civilians are families of Separatist sympathizers, being transported to Republic labor camps where they'll work in munitions factories until the war ends. Silence on the comm. You're lying, Ahsoka said hotly. The Republic doesn't operate labor camps, doesn't it, young Padawan? Dooku's voice carried sad amusement. How do you think your clone armor is manufactured? Your weapons assembled? Your starships built? The Republic may call them voluntary work programs and refugee employment initiatives, but slavery by any other name smells just as foul. He's trying to manipulate us, Anakin said flatly. Don't listen to him, am I? Dooku asked. Or am I simply offering perspective your Jedi Masters have carefully shielded you from? Tell me, Paladins in your previous war, did you ever wonder if you were fighting for the right side? Or did you simply assume that because your enemy was tyrannical, your own side must be righteous? Keith's stomach churned because the question hit too close to uncomfortable truths. The coalition hadn't always been heroic. Compromises had been made. Moral lines had blurred. We fought for freedom, Alora said, her voice carrying quiet steel. For the right of beings to determine their own destiny without fear of oppression. Then we're remarkably similar, Dooku replied. The Confederacy seeks freedom from Republic overreach, from Coruscant's crushing taxation and military occupation. We seek the right to govern ourselves without the Jedi Order, enforcing their particular view of galactic morality. Perhaps, and I know this may seem radical, perhaps we're not the villains in this story. Perhaps both sides have legitimate grievances and illegitimate methods, says the man who just had civilians loaded onto slave transports. Lance shot back, says the Paladin who just slaughtered 200 battle droids who were following their programming as surely as your clone opponents follow theirs. Dooku's voice remained maddeningly calm. We're all slaves to our nature, young warrior. The question is whether we acknowledge that reality or hide behind comfortable delusions. This conversation is over, Keith said. Whatever game you're playing, we're not interested. Not a game, an offer. Dooku's tone shifted, becoming almost gentle. You're trapped in our galaxy, fighting a war you don't understand. Allied with beings who see you as weapons rather than people. The Republic will use you, drain you, and discard you when you're no longer useful. I've seen it happen 1,000 times. And the Confederacy would be different? Pidge asked, skeptically. The Confederacy would give you resources to return home. Altian technology is fascinating. I suspect with proper study, we could reverse engineer the dimensional physics that brought you here. Help us end this war quickly. Minimize casualties on both sides. And I personally guarantee you'll have every tool available to find your way back to your galaxy. The offer hung in the void of space like a poisoned apple, tempting, dangerous. Possibly exactly what they desperately needed. Think about it, Dooku said. You don't have to answer now. But remember the Jedi Council debates while people die. The Republic Senate argues procedure while planets burn. The Confederacy acts decisively, effectively. And we offer you something the Republic never will: a way home. One of the Republic Senate. The Republic Senate. The transmission ended. Inside Blue Lion, Keith sat in silence, hands trembling slightly on the controls. Because Dooku had done something terrible and brilliant. He'd made Keith doubt. He's lying, Anakin said immediately. Everything he said is twisted half-truths designed to... Is he lying about the labor camps? Keith interrupted. About the Republic using war prisoners for manufacturing? The pause was too long. The war requires resources, Anakin said finally. Sometimes the Senate makes decisions that aren't ideal. But that's not an answer. Keith. Alora's voice cut through building tension. Whatever the truth is, we can investigate later. Right now, we have 500 people who need medical attention, and proper asylum. Let's finish this mission, then sort through the politics. She was right. Keith knew she was right. But Dooku's words had burrowed deep, raising questions that wouldn't be easily answered. Agreed, Keith said. Paladins, form up on the transport. We're taking these people somewhere safe. As they escorted the damaged transport toward Republic lines, none of them noticed the small tracking beacon that had attached itself to Blue Lion's hull during the battle, a beacon transmitting their position, light patterns, and energy signatures directly to Count Dooku's databanks. The trap wasn't the battle. The trap was the doubt. And they'd walked right into it. The Republic medical frigate Sanctuary smelled of bacta and antiseptic. A sterile environment that nonetheless carried undertones of suffering. Keith walked through corridors filled with wounded clone troopers. Their identical faces, bearing unique scars and expressions that spoke to individual experiences, despite identical genetics. Some nodded to him as he passed. Others stared with expressions mixing curiosity and suspicion. They saw him as another weapon in the Republic's arsenal. He wondered if they were right. The Twi'lek refugees from Ryloth occupied an entire medical bay, being treated for malnutrition, injuries, and psychological trauma. The scarred female, her name was Hera, Keith had learned, sat on a medical bed, while a medical droid treated chemical burns on her Leku. You came back for us, she said when Keith approached. Most beings wouldn't have. Most beings didn't pilot giant mechanical lions, Keith replied, managing a tired smile. Kind of our thing, showing up where we're needed. And where are you needed now? Hera's eyes were sharp despite her exhaustion. Because I heard the medical staff talking. You're not Republic military. You're not even from this galaxy. So why are you here, fighting our war? Keith sat on an adjacent bed, suddenly aware of how bone-tired he was. Honestly? We're still figuring that out. They slew figuring he was. If he wanted the bone-tired he was. And rebided days, get some 7 tires. Count Dooku contacted you during the battle, Hera said. It wasn't a question. I have friends in Republic intelligence. They monitor separatist communications. What did he offer you? How did you? I told you. I have friends. Hera leaned forward slightly. And I'm not asking out of curiosity. I'm asking because if the Voltron Force is deciding which side to support in this war, a lot of beings are going to live or die based on that decision. Keith met her gaze. He offered us a way home, said the Confederacy had resources to study the dimensional rift that brought us here, maybe even recreate it. And you're considering it. I'm considering that we don't belong here, that this isn't our fight. That maybe the best thing we could do for this galaxy is get out of it before we make things worse. About labor camps and war crimes. And when I asked General Skywalker if it was true, he couldn't deny it. Hera was quiet for a long moment. The Republic isn't perfect. Neither is the Confederacy. Both sides have done terrible things in the name of winning, but there's a difference between imperfect systems trying to be better and tyranny wearing a mask of righteousness. How do we tell the difference? You look at what they're building toward, Hera said simply. The Republic, for all its flaws, is trying to preserve democracy. Messy, slow, frustrating democracy where beings have rights and voices and choices. The Confederacy talks about independence, but look closer, it's controlled by mega corporations and banking clans who see entire species as profit margins. Count Dooku is playing a long game, and beings like me are the pieces he's willing to sacrifice. Also over. Count Dooku is playing a long game. You sound like you have personal experience with that. Hera's hand unconsciously touched her scarred Leku. My family supported independence for Ryloth. We believed Dooku's promises of freedom from Republic control. Then the Separatists came, and we learned what their version of freedom looked like. My father. She stopped, composing herself. My father is still on Ryloth, fighting a resistance against both sides. Because when you're caught between two armies, freedom means fighting for yourself. Keith thought of the coalition, of planets caught between the Galactic Empire and desperate rebel cells, of the impossible choices civilians faced when warfare consumed their worlds. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be careful. Hera stood, despite the medical droid's protests. Count Dooku is brilliant, charismatic, and genuinely believes his own philosophy. That makes him more dangerous than a simple villain. He'll offer you everything you want: a way home, moral justification, even friendship, and he'll mean it. But serving his vision of the galaxy requires compromising pieces of yourself, until you wake up one day and don't recognize who you've become. Before Keith could respond, alarms blared through the medical frigate. A clone trooper rushed past, helmet already sealed. Battle stations. All personnel. Battle stations. Separatist fleet incoming. Keith's comm erupted with his team's voices overlapping. Keith, we've got multiple contacts dropping from hyperspace. Pidge's voice was sharp with urgency. It's a full assault fleet. Providence-class carriers, munificent frigates, at least 300 vulture droids. The Republic fleet isn't fully assembled yet. Anakin's voice cut in. We're outnumbered 3-1. Keith, get your team to the Lions now. Keith was already running. Behind him, Hera called out, Paladin, whatever you decide, make sure it's your choice, not one made for you by circumstance. The hangar bay was controlled chaos. Clone pilots sprinted to fighters while technicians armed torpedoes and loaded cannons with desperate efficiency. The Voltron Force reached their lines simultaneously, their bond pulling them together even in crisis. Anyone want to bet this is Dooku testing us? Lance asked, as Red Lion's systems powered up around him. Not taking that bet, Hunk replied. Yellow Lion's weapon systems came online with reassuring hums. This has teaching moment written all over it. Pidge tactical analysis, Keith ordered. Blue Lion's consciousness merging with his own, their connection deeper every time they bonded. What are we facing? Full battle group with one objective: destroy this medical frigate. Pidge's voice carried cold analysis. They're bypassing Republic defensive positions and targeting the most vulnerable ship in the fleet. Casualties if they succeed. Estimated 15,000 wounded soldiers and 2,000 medical staff. They're forcing our hand, Allura realized, making us fight to protect innocents while the Republic fleet scrambles to respond. If we engage, we prove we're Republic assets. If we don't, people die while we debate philosophy. Keith finished grimly. Anakin's starfighter launched from the hangar, Ahsoka on his wing. Paladins, we need to buy time for the Republic fleet to form up. Can your Lions create a defensive perimeter around the medical frigate? We can try, Keith said. But 5 ships against 300? Even we have limits. Then it's fortunate you're not alone. A new voice cut across the comm older, carrying the weight of command experience. Admiral Wolf Yularen's hologram appeared on their displays. This is Admiral Yularen commanding the Republic Third Fleet. All available ships. Form defensive screen around Sanctuary. We will not abandon our wounded. The Republic fleet, undermanned and still organizing, surged forward. Star destroyers positioned themselves between the Separatist assault and the medical frigate. Clone fighters launched in waves despite incomplete preparations. It was suicidal. It was necessary. It was exactly the kind of desperate heroism Keith recognized from countless battles against Zarkon. All Lions, defensive formation. Keith's hands flew across controls. We protect that frigate no matter what. The Separatist fleet opened fire. The void lit up with turbo laser fire, torpedo trails, and the screams of dying ships. The Republic defensive line buckled immediately. Too few ships. Too little preparation, too much overwhelming firepower bearing down on them. Blue Lion moved to intercept a torpedo barrage headed for Sanctuary. Keith felt the Lion's defensive energy field deploy. quintessence shielding creating barriers that absorbed explosions meant to vaporize the medical frigate. The backlash shook Blue's frame, but held. "Shields at 73%, Keith reported. "I can't keep this up forever." "You won't have to." Lance's Red Lion danced between separatist fighters, precision fire dropping them one after another. "Because I'm incredibly awesome at multitasking." "Lance, your humility is inspiring," Pidge said dryly, even as Green Lion's sensors guided defensive fire across the entire battlefield. "But maybe focus on the 3 tri-fighters on your 6. I see them. I totally see them and am handling them expertly okay. I didn't see that 4th one." Hunk's Yellow Lion interposed itself between Red and the attacker, heavy armor absorbing fire that would have crippled the lighter lion. "Got you, buddy. But maybe less talking, more shooting? That's the most wisdom you've ever shared, Hunk." Alora's Red Lion moved like liquid lightning, her tactical brilliance coordinating the Republic's scattered defense into something resembling organized resistance. "Admiral Yularen, concentrate your capital ship's fire on the lead munificent. I'm transmitting coordinates for its shield generator. Keith, when it's exposed, hit it with everything Blue's got." The plan executed perfectly. Republic turbo lasers hammered the Separatist frigate's shields until they collapsed. Blue Lion's mouth opened, quintessence gathering in response to Keith's will. "For everyone on that medical frigate," Keith whispered. The blast that erupted from Blue Lion wasn't just energy. It was purpose, given, form, the fundamental essence of life itself, weaponized in defense of those who couldn't defend themselves. The munificent's hull crumpled like paper, secondary explosions rippling through its structure before it broke apart in silent, spectacular destruction. On his carrier's bridge, Count Dooku watched the display with satisfaction. "There. That's what I wanted to see." General Grievous studied the tactical readout. The Paladins fight with remarkable coordination. But there's still only 5 ships. We can overwhelm them with numbers. "We could," Dooku agreed. "But we won't. General, signal the fleet to withdraw." Dooku agreed. Dooku agreed. Dooku agreed. "But we won't." Dooku agreed. "General, signal the fleet to withdraw." "My lord, they've proven themselves willing to die for Republic innocence. They've committed to protecting the weak despite having every reason to remain neutral." "That's instructive." Dooku's fingers drummed against his armrest. "And now they're emotionally invested. They've shed blood, figuratively speaking, for the Republic's cause. Walking away becomes psychologically harder with each battle they fight. You're manipulating them into loyalty through manufactured crisis," Grievous realized. "I'm educating them about the nature of warfare," Dooku corrected. "Every battle they win for the Republic deepens their commitment. Every life they save becomes a weight pulling them further from neutrality. By the time they realize they've been maneuvered into becoming Republic weapons, they'll have already made too many sacrifices to walk away. And if they ever do try to leave, well, what kind of heroes abandon allies after taking their hospitality, using their resources, and accepting their protection? Clever. Necessary." Dooku's expression hardened. "Lord Sidious wants them eliminated or controlled. I'm choosing controlled. But control requires patience, manipulation, and making them believe every choice is their own. Now withdraw the fleet. Let them have their victory. Let them feel like heroes." The Separatist fleet disengaged as suddenly as it had attacked, jumping to hyperspace and leaving the battered Republic forces in confused relief. Inside Blue Lion, Keith watched them go with hollow victory. Why did they retreat? We were holding, but barely. Another 10 minutes, and they would have broken through. Because Dooku got what he wanted, Anakin said quietly. He tested our response time, our capabilities, and our willingness to fight for the Republic. We gave him all three. You think this was all theater? I think Count Dooku doesn't attack medical frigates without strategic purpose. And I think we just became part of his larger plan, whether we wanted to or not. Keith looked at the damaged Republic ships, at the medical frigate they'd protected, at the thousands of lives they'd saved. Thought about Dooku's offer of a way home. Thought about Hera's warning about compromises that slowly consumed you. We did the right thing, Keith said, trying to convince himself as much as his team. Did we? Pidge's voice was unusually uncertain. Or did we just pick a side in a war we don't understand because the alternative felt cowardly? No one had an answer. In the silence, Blue Lion's consciousness brushed against Keith's mind, not with words, but with a feeling of support, trust, and unshakable loyalty. Whatever choices lay ahead, the Lions would face them together. Take us back to the temple, Keith said finally. We need to talk to Master Yoda. We need. He paused, searching for words. We need to understand what we're really fighting for, before we fight any more battles. As the Lions turned toward Coruscant, none of them saw the figure watching from the medical frigate's observation deck. Senator Padme Amidala stood silhouetted against the stars, her expression thoughtful as she observed the 5 mechanical lions that had just saved 15,000 lives. Interesting, she murmured. She activated her encrypted.com. This is Senator Amidala. I need a private meeting with Chancellor Palpatine. The subject is sensitive and potentially galaxy-changing. In his office, Darth Sidious received the message and smiled. The web grew tighter. The paladins were dancing exactly as orchestrated. Soon, they would have no choice but to serve his vision or burn in its implementation. The Jedi Temple's meditation gardens offered sanctuary from Coruscant's endless noise waterfalls created by ancient technology, trees imported from 1,000 worlds, and the soft luminescence of bioengineered flowers that bloomed only in the Force's presence. Keith sat on a stone bench, staring at Blue Lion's silhouette in the nearby hangar, trying to find the clarity that had guided him through the war against Zarkon. It wasn't coming. Troubled you are. Master Yoda's voice preceded him, the ancient Jedi's walking stick tapping against stone pathways. Sense it. I do. Confusion. Doubt. Fear. Not fear, Keith said, then reconsidered. Maybe fear. Fear that we're making the wrong choices for the right reasons. Yoda settled onto the bench with a soft grunt. Tell me of your previous war. Against this Zarkon. The Tyrant. Keith described it the Galactic Empire's expansion, Zarkon's corruption by quintessence itself, the Coalition's desperate struggle against overwhelming odds. He spoke of planets liberated and planets destroyed, of moral compromises made in service to ultimate victory, of the weight of piloting a weapon that could level cities but choosing to protect instead. And victory you achieved, Yoda said when Keith finished. At what cost? Everything. Keith's voice was hollow. The previous paladins died. Alora's homeworld was destroyed 10,000 years ago. We formed Voltron so many times that sometimes I couldn't tell where I ended and Blue Lion began. We won, but... He paused. We won because we knew who the enemy was. Zarkon was unambiguously evil. His empire conquered and enslaved without nuance. Fighting him was simple. Simple, Yoda repeated. Interesting word. Comfortable word. False word. What? Simple. Your previous war was not, Yoda said firmly. Alliances of convenience, you made. Compromised with warlords and criminals, you did, to fight greater evil. Watched innocents die while saving others, you had to. Only from distance of victory does it appear so. Keith opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. Yoda was right. The war against Zarkon had been messy, morally complicated, and filled with impossible choices. Memory had simplified it into heroic narrative, but the reality had been far darker. This war feels different, Keith said finally. Zarkon was a tyrant, but the Republic and Confederacy, they're both flawed democracies fighting over philosophy and territory. Choose between them you must? Yoda's ears twitched. Or choose to serve something higher than political factions, could you? By Yoda's ears truce. Yoda's ears truce. What do you mean? Come with me. Yoda rose, gesturing with his walking stick. Something show you I will. They walked deeper into the temple, into levels most visitors never saw. Meditation chambers, where Jedi trained. Libraries containing knowledge spanning millennia. And finally, a chamber filled with holographic star maps, the entire galaxy laid out in shimmering blue light. 3 billion systems, Yoda said quietly. 100 quintillion beings. More diversity than any single mind can comprehend, and caught in war between two governments. All of them are, whether they chose it or not. He pointed to specific systems. Here, a planet that wants to remain neutral, but invaded by both sides as strategic position. Here, a species going extinct while Republic and Separatist fight over their world's resources. Here, a civilization 10,000 years old, reduced to refugees because their planet became a battlefield. Keith stared at the map, seeing not political boundaries but individual tragedies multiplied across impossible scales. Both sides claim righteousness. Yoda continued. Both sides commit atrocities. Both sides believe victory justifies their methods. And beings like you, Paladin Keith, beings with power to change outcomes, must decide not which government to serve, but which principles to uphold. What if those principles put us in opposition to both sides, then opposed to both sides? You will be. Yoda met his gaze with ancient eyes that had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations. Comfortable. That path is not. Safe. It is not. But ask yourself, when serving truth rather than power, have you ever chosen safety over righteousness? Before Keith could answer, his comm chirped urgently. Anakin's voice, tight with controlled anger. Keith, get to the council chamber immediately. We have a situation. The council chamber felt different this time, not peaceful deliberation but barely contained fury. Anakin stood before the assembled masters. Anakin is Luke Tenyo. Holographic images of Mace Windu, Obi-Wan Kenobi, and other Jedi leaders surrounding him. Senator Padme Amidala stood to one side, her expression carefully neutral. The Chancellor has issued a directive, Mace Windu said without preamble when Keith arrived. The Voltron Lions are to be classified as Republic military assets. Your team will be integrated into the Grand Army's command structure, under direct Senate oversight. Keith's blood went cold. Excuse me? It's for everyone's protection, Senator Amidala said smoothly. The Lions represent unprecedented firepower. Leaving such weapons under no governmental oversight would be irresponsible. We're not weapons, Keith said flatly. We're people. And the Lions aren't Republic property. They're Alteon technology, bonded to specific pilots. You can't just commandeer them. The Republic isn't commandeering anything, Amidala replied. We're offering formal alliance, military rank, resources, full legal protection under Republic law. You'd be heroes, celebrated throughout the galaxy. The Chancellor himself wants to meet you, to personally thank you for your service at Ryloth. Anakin's expression was carefully controlled, but Keith caught the tension in his shoulders. This is Palpatine's doing. He sees what the Lions can do, and wants them under his authority. The Chancellor, Mace Windu said with visible effort at patience, sees a potential strategic advantage and wants to ensure it serves the Republic's interests, rather than becoming a destabilizing factor. By taking away our choice, Keith said. By forcing us into your military chain of command. How is that different from what Count Dooku offered using us for your political goals? The silence was damning. You have 48 hours to decide, Senator Amidala said. After that, the Senate will vote on classifying the Lions as strategic resources, requiring governmental control. I recommend you choose cooperation over compulsion. She left with practiced grace. The moment the doors closed, Anakin exploded. This is insane. The Chancellor promised he wouldn't interfere with the Jedi's assessment of the Paladins. Now he's going around us directly to the Senate? The Chancellor, Mace Windu said tiredly, has emergency war powers. Powers we granted him, I might add. He's operating within constitutional authority. Constitutional tyranny is still tyranny. Anakin's hand was on his lightsaber hilt, unconscious gesture of agitation. We're supposed to be the guardians of peace and justice, not facilitators of political power grabs. Skywalker. Mace Windu's voice carried warning. Your emotions are clouding your judgment. The Chancellor's directive may be heavy-handed, but it's not tyrannical. The Paladins represent galactic-scale firepower. Oversight isn't unreasonable. It is when it removes their agency. Anakin turned to Keith. You know what this is. They're scared of independent power they can't control. First they ask nicely, then they legislate control. Then if you refuse, they find ways to take by force what they couldn't take by law. Keith felt trapped. Refusing meant opposition to the galactic government they'd been helping. Accepting meant becoming weapons in a war they didn't fully understand, serving political goals that might not align with their principles. I need to talk to my team, Keith said finally. You have 48 hours, Mace Windu said. Use them wisely. The Voltron Force gathered in Blue Lion's cockpit, all 5 Paladins crammed into a space designed for one, seeking privacy where even the temple's walls might have listening devices. So we have 2 options, Lance summarized. Become Republic military assets, or become fugitives. Great. Love those choices. There's a third option, Pidge said quietly. She'd been working on her datapad throughout the walk back. I've been analyzing the dimensional rift's quantum signature. The Lions have been collecting residual energy from the original wormhole, storing it in their quintessence matrices. Meaning? Hunk asked. Meaning if we pooled all 5 Lions' energy and created a synchronized quintessence pulse at the exact harmonic frequency of the original rift. Pidge looked up. We might be able to tear open a new wormhole, force a path back to our galaxy. The hope that flared in Keith's chest was immediately tempered by suspicion. Might? What's the success probability? Would. End quote. 42%, Pidge admitted. And if it fails, we'd be dead. If it succeeds? Alora asked. We go home. Leave this galaxy's problems to beings who actually understand them. Resume our lives without being weaponized by another government. Pidge's voice carried yearning. We could be done with all of this. The silence stretched. Outside, Coruscant's endless traffic hummed through the night. 42%, Hunk said slowly. Less than half. And if we die trying, the Lions fall into Republic or Separatist hands anyway. But if we stay, Lance countered, we become tools in a war that isn't ours, fighting and dying for political goals we might not even agree with. Is that better? We could refuse both, Keith said. Reject the Republic's demands. Refuse Dooku's offers. Find our own path. Become independents, helping people regardless of political affiliation. Noble, Alora said, but impractical. Both sides would hunt us. We'd be fugitives with targets on our backs. Could we really help anyone while constantly running? We've done it before, Keith argued. We spent years fighting Zarkon, while half the coalition wanted to use us as weapons. We found ways to help without compromising our principles. This isn't the coalition, Pidge said. This is a galactic republic with millions of ships, surveillance networks, and force-sensitive operatives who can track us through mystical energy. We're in their universe now, playing by their rules. Then we change the rules, Keith said with more confidence than he felt. We've always fought our own way. Why should this be different? Because we're tired, Alora said quietly, and her voice carried such raw exhaustion that everyone stopped. Because we fought a war that lasted years. Because we sacrificed everything to save our galaxy, and now we're trapped in someone else's nightmare being told we have to do it all again. Maybe. She paused. Maybe 42% odds of going home are better than certainty of endless war. Keith looked at his team, his family, forged through impossible battles and unbreakable bonds. Saw Lance's cocky confidence faltering. Saw Hunk's optimism strained to breaking. Saw Pidge's analytical mind struggling with variables she couldn't control. Saw Alora's regal strength cracking under the weight of losing everything twice. They were breaking. Slowly. Subtly. But breaking nonetheless. 24 hours, Keith said. We have 48 hours to decide about the Republic's demands. We'll take 24 to rest, think, and discuss. Then we'll make this decision together. As a team, whatever we choose, going home, staying, fighting, running, we choose it together. Together, Lance repeated, managing a tired smile. The way we always do. The way we always do. The others echoed. But as they dispersed to their quarters, Keith caught Alora's arm gently. You're really considering the wormhole attempt. 42% survival odds. I'm considering that maybe being home with 42% odds is better than being trapped here with absolute certainty of more pain. Alora's eyes were haunted. Keith, I've already lost everything once. My planet, my father, my people, all gone. I rebuilt myself into someone who could function, who could fight, who could lead. And now we're here. And I feel that foundation cracking. How many times can someone lose everything before there's nothing left to rebuild from? Keith pulled her into a hug, feeling her shake with suppressed emotion. We'll figure this out, together, together, she whispered. But her voice carried doubt that terrified him more than any enemy they'd ever faced. In the temple's lower levels, Master Yoda meditated in his private chamber. He felt the Paladin's pain through the Force, sharp, raw, completely foreign to this galaxy, yet somehow heartbreakingly familiar. Young beings forced into impossible choices by circumstances beyond their control. He'd seen it before. And often those beings paid terrible prices for destiny's designs. Guide them, I cannot. Yoda murmured to the Force itself. Their path, they must choose. But wisdom, perhaps I can offer. Comfort, perhaps I can provide. The Force responded with no clear answer. Free will meant uncertain futures, and even 900 years of experience couldn't predict how 5 young warriors would choose when faced with impossible odds. In Chancellor Palpatine's office, Darth Sidious watched holographic surveillance of the temple, tracking the Paladins' movements, analyzing their body language and emotional states. They're close to breaking, he said to Ma Sameda. Push them just a little further, and they'll either submit to Republic authority or attempt their desperate escape plan. Either way, we win. And if they choose to flee? Ma Sameda asked. Then I've arranged for interdiction fields to prevent hyperspace jumps from Coruscant's immediate vicinity. If they try to force a dimensional rift, the interference will cause catastrophic quintessence cascade failure. Sidious's smile was cold. The lions will be destroyed, and we'll reverse engineer them from the wreckage. Less useful than intact specimens, but acceptable. Well, less useful the wreckage. Less useful the wreckage. Less useful than intact specimens. You would risk losing such powerful assets? I would risk nothing. The dark side shows me futures, Ma Sameda. And in every future where the Voltron Force remains free and unpredictable, they disrupt my carefully laid plans. Better to eliminate that variable entirely than allow chaos to propagate. If I can't control them through political manipulation, perhaps I can turn them through the more subtle applications of the dark side. You intend to corrupt them? I intend to offer them what they desperately want: certainty in an uncertain galaxy. The dark side gives passion, strength, and clear purpose. The Jedi offer restraint and endless debate. The Republic offers bureaucracy and moral compromise. The Separatists offer false freedom under corporate oligarchy. Sidious's yellow eyes gleamed. I alone can offer them what they truly seek. The power to shape their own destiny, to return home, to end their suffering. All they need do is embrace the means necessary to achieve it. And if they refuse, then they die, and we take their technology for the Empire. Sidious smiled that terrible smile. One way or another, the Voltron Force serves my purposes. They simply don't know it yet. High above Coruscant, Blue Line rested in the temple hangar, its systems quiet but aware. Through its bond with Keith, it felt his turmoil. Through its connection to the other Lions, it felt the team's pain. The Lions had existed for millennia, serving countless paladins across generations. They had witnessed triumph and tragedy, heroism and horror. And in all that time, they had learned one truth. True paladins didn't choose the easy path. Blue Line pulsed with soft quintessence light, a reminder to Keith, wherever he was, that he didn't face these choices alone. The bond between Paladin and Lion transcended universes, transcended manipulation, transcended fear itself. Whatever Keith decided, Blue would follow. To home or to war. To victory or to death. Together, the way it had always been. Dawn broke over Coruscant, but Keith hadn't slept. He stood in the temple's observation deck, watching traffic streams that never truly stopped, thinking about choices and consequences. Behind him, Anakin Skywalker approached with 2 cups of something that smelled vaguely like coffee but wasn't quite right. Can't sleep either? Anakin offered 1 cup. It's Jedi Temple blend, supposed to promote calm and clarity. Mostly it just tastes like regret and obligation. Keith took it anyway, grateful for the gesture. Fight a war that seems endless. Make impossible choices every day. Poorly, Anakin admitted. He leaned against the observation window, his reflection ghostly in the transparisteel. The council thinks I'm too emotional. My wife thinks I'm too focused on duty. My Padawan thinks I'm overprotective. And me? He laughed bitterly. I think everyone's asking the wrong questions. What's the right question? Not which side is right, but what can I do right now to minimize suffering? Anakin sipped his terrible coffee. The Republic is flawed. Deeply flawed. The Senate is corrupt. The Jedi are complacent. And Chancellor Palpatine. He paused, something dark crossing his expression. The Chancellor has too much power for any one person in a democracy. But the alternative, separatist victory, means corporate oligarchy and Count Dooku's vision of benevolent dictatorship. So I fight for the flawed democracy and hope I can help fix it before it collapses entirely. That's not exactly inspiring. No, Anakin agreed. But it's honest, and honesty is the only thing keeping me sane. He turned to face Keith directly. I know what Padme offered you. Integration into Republic military command. I know what the Chancellor wants your Lions as strategic assets under his control. And I know what Count Dooku promised resources to send you home. You're here to influence my decision. I'm here to tell you that whatever you decide, I understand. Anakin's voice carried unexpected gentleness. I was a slave once. On Tatooine, the Jedi freed me, trained me, gave me purpose. But sometimes I wonder if I just exchanged one form of servitude for another. The Republic asks me to kill in its name, to compromise my principles for military necessity, to be a weapon first and a person second. Sound familiar? Keith's hands tightened on his cup. So, what you're saying, we shouldn't help? That we should just run away and let this galaxy burn? I'm saying there's no perfect choice. Only choices you can live with. Anakin finished his coffee in one long swallow. You want my advice? Don't ask. What should we do? Ask, who do we want to be? Everything else follows from that. He left Keith alone with that thought and terrible coffee. By the time the team assembled in Blue Lion's cockpit again, decision time had arrived. They sat in silence for long moments, each wrestling with personal demons and impossible calculations. I've refined the wormhole calculations, Pidge said finally. 51% success probability now. Basically a coin flip. Death or home, Hunk said quietly, Staying here means becoming weapons in someone else's war. Going home means a 51% chance of vaporization. Anyone have a third option that doesn't involve death or servitude? We could fight, Lance said. Not for the Republic or Confederacy. For ourselves. Help people regardless of politics, like Keith suggested, while being hunted by both sides, Allura countered. With no resources, no allies, and 5 very conspicuous mechanical lions that everyone in the galaxy wants to control or destroy. We've faced worse odds, Keith said. Have we? Allura's voice cracked slightly. Keith, we're not in our universe anymore. The rules are different. The Force exists here. An energy that can track us, manipulate us, maybe even corrupt us. We don't understand the technology, the politics, or the fundamental nature of this reality. How can we fight effectively when we don't even understand the battlefield? The same way we've always fought, Keith insisted. By trusting each other. By doing what's right regardless of the odds. By being paladins. What if being paladins means knowing when to stop fighting? Allura's question hung in the air like a sword. What if the right choice is to go home, or die trying, rather than become weapons in another endless war? Before anyone could respond, alarms screamed through the temple. Not battle stations this time, something different. Penetrating. Urgent. Accompanied by a feeling in the air like reality itself bending. What is that? Hunk asked. Force disturbance. Pidge read from her sensors. Massive dark side spike originating from... She stopped, disbelief coloring her voice. From inside the temple. Section Gamma 7. That's the high security detention level. Keith's comm erupted with Anakin's voice, ragged with exertion. Keith, we need the lions now. Ventress has infiltrated the temple. She's after the separatist prisoners we've been interrogating. We're outnumbered. Ventress? Keith was already moving. Blue Lion systems responding before he consciously commanded them. Darkside assassin, Anakin grunted. Sounds of lightsaber combat audible in background. Dooku's apprentice. Incredibly dangerous. She's brought combat droids. And the transmission cut to static. The paladins exchanged glances, a moment of perfect communication without words. Paladins, to your lions, Keith ordered. They moved as one, years of teamwork translating into instant action. The lions awakened, quintessence energy flooding through their systems. But as they prepared to deploy, Pidge's sensors caught something that made her blood run cold. Keith, the wormhole energy. The lions have been storing it in preparation for a potential dimensional rift attempt. If we deploy now, use their full power in combat, we'll burn through the accumulated energy. The wormhole attempt, it won't be possible anymore. We'd be committed to staying in this galaxy. The weight of that statement crushed down on all of them. How long do we have? Keith asked. To decide? About 10 seconds before people start dying without our help. Lance laughed, high and slightly hysterical. Of course. Because the universe loves forcing our hand with hostage situations. It's our greatest hit. I vote we help, Hunk said immediately. We can figure out the rest later, but we can't let people die when we could prevent it. Agreed, Lance added. Future problems are still future. Present problems need present solutions. Pidge looked at her calculations one last time. 51% chance of going home. Weighted against certain deaths if they didn't intervene. I hate this. I hate every part of this. But deploy the lions. We'll find another way home. Allura was silent, her hand resting on Red Lion's control interface. Keith could see the war in her eyes, the desperate desire to escape, versus the core principles that had made her a paladin in the first place. Allura? Keith prompted gently. I know what my father would say, Allura whispered. I know what being a paladin means. But Keith, I'm so tired of sacrificing everything. Can't someone else be the hero for once? Yes, Keith said simply. Someone else can be the hero. Right now, I'll deploy Blue alone. You stay here, preserve the wormhole energy. If there's any chance of getting home, we shouldn't destroy it without... No. Alora's voice firmed, Princess of Altea, emerging from beneath the exhausted young woman. We're a team. If you're fighting, I'm fighting. If you're staying in this galaxy, I'm staying. Together. Together. Together, the others echoed. Then let's go save some lives, Keith said. And deal with the consequences later. Lions engage. 1 end quote. 1 end quote. Lions engage. The 5 mechanical beasts tore through the temple toward the detention level, their pilots feeling the stored wormhole energy dissipate with each passing second. By the time they reached the combat, it would be gone, their ticket home burning away to save strangers in an alien galaxy. But that was the nature of being a paladin. Not choosing between safety and danger, but choosing who to save, knowing you couldn't save everyone, including sometimes yourself. In the detention level, Asajj Ventress moved like liquid death, dual lightsabers carving through Jedi defenders with contemptuous ease. Her pale skin and bald head marked her as Dathomirian, but her eyes held darkness that transcended species. Behind her, advanced assassin droids provided covering fire, while she advanced on the cell containing a captured separatist general whose knowledge could shift the war. Master Yoda, she called mockingly. Send more Jedi. I haven't killed enough today to satisfy Count Dooku's expectations. Yoda stood between her and the prisoners, his small form radiating power that made the Force itself ripple. Leave now. You will, Ventress. Or leave in pieces. You shall. Brave words for something so... The wall exploded inward. Blue Lion's head emerged through the breach, eyes glowing with quintessence fury. Keith's voice boomed through external speakers. This is Paladin Keith of Voltron. Drop your weapons and surrender, or we end this now. Ventress stared at the mechanical beast, then began to laugh genuine, delighted laughter. Oh, this is perfect. Dooku said you'd choose to help. He's going to be insufferable about being right. What? Keith's confusion was audible. This whole attack was bait, fool. Ventress gestured to the devastation around her. A test to see if you'd burn your only chance of escape to save Republic prisoners. And you did. You beautiful, predictable heroes actually did. Her laughter intensified. You're trapped here now, committed to this war whether you want to be or not. And when you realize how badly the Republic uses you, when you're desperate and broken, and have nowhere else to turn, Count Dooku will be waiting with open arms. The truth hit Keith like a physical blow. The whole situation, the timing, the infiltration, the Force disturbance designed to be impossible to ignore, all orchestrated to force exactly this choice at exactly this moment. They'd been manipulated. Again. Paladins, Ventress purred, her lightsabers deactivating. Welcome to the Clone Wars. Enjoy your servitude. She threw a smoke grenade and was gone, using Force-enhanced speed to vanish through a previously prepared escape route. In the silence that followed, Keith sat in Blue's cockpit, feeling the last traces of wormhole energy dissipate from the Lion's systems. They'd chosen to help. Chosen to be heroes. And in doing so, had chosen imprisonment in a galaxy that would use them until there was nothing left to use. Status? Keith asked hollowly. Wormhole energy depleted. Pidge confirmed, her voice empty. The dimensional rift attempt is no longer possible. We're staying here. For the long term. Maybe forever, Hunk added quietly. In the detention level, Master Yoda looked up at Blue Lion's massive form, sensed the despair radiating from its pilot, felt the moment of choice crystallizing into permanent consequence. Trapped you believe yourself to be, Yoda said softly. But perhaps trapped you were always, and only now choice of how to be trapped you have made. Keith wanted to rage, to scream, to tear reality apart with Blue Lion's power, But instead, he just felt tired. "We saved lives today," Allura said on their private channel. "That counts for something." "Does it?" Lance asked. "When we were manipulated into making the choice? When we're exactly where Dooku wanted us? Does it?" "Yes," Keith said firmly, finding resolution in the certainty of their decision if not its circumstances. "Because we chose based on our principles, not his manipulation. He predicted we'd help, because helping is who we are. That doesn't make us weak, it makes us paladins. Paladins trapped in the Clone Wars," Pidge said. "Then we'll be paladins in the Clone Wars," Keith replied. "On our terms. Fighting our way. Not for the Republic or Confederacy, but for the people caught between them. Dooku thinks he's won? Let him. He's about to learn what Zarkon learned, that you can't control people who refuse to be controlled." "Bold words," Lance said. "Think we can back them up?" "We've done it before," Keith said. "We'll do it again. Together. Together." The others echoed. "With more conviction this time. With more conviction this time." But as the Lions withdrew from the detention level and the team faced the reality of their situation, none of them saw Darth Sidious watching through hidden surveillance. His expression satisfied. "Perfect," he murmured. "Now they're committed. Now they're invested. And soon, very soon, they'll be desperate enough to accept any offer of power, any promise of control, any path that leads away from helplessness." His yellow eyes gleamed with dark-side corruption. "The Voltron Force belongs to me now. They simply don't know it yet." In the Force, something stirred a disturbance, neither light nor dark, but fundamentally other. The quintessence energy from the Lions was affecting this galaxy in ways no one could predict. The Force itself was changing, adapting. And deep in unknown space, an ancient consciousness that had watched galaxies rise and fall took notice of 5 impossible machines and the beings who piloted them. The Voltron Force had entered the Clone Wars thinking they'd stay until they could leave. They didn't yet understand they'd become part of something far larger, a convergence of power that would reshape not just the war, but the fundamental nature of the Force itself. The Senate Rotunda had witnessed 1,000 debates, 10,000 political maneuvers, and countless moments where the Republic's future balanced on rhetoric and votes. But it had never witnessed anything like this. Keith stood in the speaker's platform, surrounded by holographic projections of 1,000 senators from across the galaxy, all focused on him. Beside him stood his team: Lance, Pidge, Hunk, and Allura, 5 young warriors who'd fought empires and now faced bureaucracy's equally dangerous weapons. Chancellor Palpatine presided from his elevated position, his grandfatherly face projecting benevolent concern. "Will you accept commissions as officers in the Grand Army of the Republic?" "No," Keith said simply. The chamber erupted. Senators shouted questions, accusations, demands for clarification. Palpatine raised one hand, silence falling with disturbing speed. "Perhaps you misunderstand the question," Palpatine said, voice carrying gentle correction. "This isn't a request for servitude. It's an offer of partnership, legitimacy, and resources. Surely you see the benefit?" "We see the trap," Pidge said bluntly. Her datapad projected evidence across the chamber: communication logs, supply requisitions, military orders. In the past 3 weeks, the Republic has attempted to reverse engineer our Lion's technology without permission, plant tracking devices in our quarters, intercept our private communications, and draft legislation classifying sentient Altian AI as military equipment subject to seizure. Gasps rippled through the Senate. Palpatine's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. "These are serious accusations," Senator Bail Organa said from his platform. "Do you have proof?" "She just transmitted it to every senator's terminal," Lance said. The silence stretched as senators reviewed data. Keith watched Palpatine carefully. The Chancellor wasn't panicking, wasn't even particularly concerned. This was a man who played multi-dimensional chess and had contingencies for every outcome. "Even if these allegations are accurate," Palpatine said smoothly, "they represent overzealous intelligence gathering, not malicious intent. In wartime, security measures sometimes exceed acceptable bounds. But the core question remains: will you help us? Or will you remain selfish outsiders, hoarding power while innocents die? The emotional manipulation was masterful. Keith felt the chamber's mood shift. Senators who'd been sympathetic now viewing them as selfish children, refusing to share their toys during galactic crisis. "We've already helped," Alora said, her voice cutting through the murmurs. "Ryloth, the medical frigate, the temple attack. We've shed blood figuratively for your republic, but we won't become your property. We won't sacrifice our autonomy for your political convenience." "Then what will you do?" Palpatine's question carried edge now, the grandfatherly mask slipping slightly. "Wander the galaxy as vigilantes? Interfere with military operations? Undermine governmental authority during our darkest hour?" "We'll do what paladins have always done," Keith said. "Defend those who can't defend themselves. But on our terms, not yours. Not the Confederacy's. Ours. That's anarchy." Senator Orn Freetop protested, his multiple chins quivering with indignation. "You can't simply operate outside galactic law, can't we?" Keith met Palpatine's eyes directly. "You don't have jurisdiction over us, Chancellor. We're not Republic citizens. We're not even from this galaxy. By your own legal framework, we're sovereign entities. You can't draft us any more than you can draft the Hutt cartel." Palpatine's smile was cold. "The Hutts are criminals we tolerate out of necessity. Are you claiming similar status?" We're claiming independence," Keith said firmly. "You want our help? Ask, don't command. Treat us as allies, not assets, and accept that sometimes we'll refuse if your requests conflict with our principles." "Principles?" Palpatine repeated. "How noble. How impractical. How dangerous." He leaned forward. "The Clone Wars cannot be won by beings who pick and choose which battles deserve their attention. Total war requires total commitment. Half measures and moral grandstanding cost lives." "Then we'll cost lives," Keith said, and felt his team's shock ripple through their bond. "Because becoming weapons in your war would cost our souls. And we've sacrificed enough for galaxies that weren't our own." The chamber exploded again. Senators screamed accusations of cowardice, treason, criminal negligence. But Keith noticed something: not all senators were angry. Bail Organa watched with thoughtful respect. Padme Amidala, who delivered Palpatine's original ultimatum, now looked troubled. Mon Mothma's expression was carefully neutral, but her eyes held calculation. Palpatine let the chaos continue for precisely measured moments before restoring order. "I see negotiation has failed. Therefore, the Senate will vote. Resolution 5423S. Classify Altian lions as strategic military resources requiring governmental oversight. All in favor?" The vote was swift, overwhelming, terrifying in its efficiency. 83% in favor. The Republic had just legislated the Voltron Force into property. "The motion carries," Palpatine announced with satisfaction. "Paladins, you have 24 hours to surrender your vessels to Republic military custody. Failure to comply will result in no." The word came not from Keith, but from Master Yoda, who'd been sitting silently in the Jedi Council's observation box throughout the proceedings. "Master Yoda," Palpatine said with strained patience, "this is a Senate matter, not a Jedi concern. Jedi concern it becomes when Force-sensitive technology you attempt to seize," Yoda replied. He moved to the chamber floor with deliberate slowness, walking stick tapping against stone. "Studied the lions. We have. Connected to the Force, they are. Sentient, they are. Living beings under Republic law, they are not equipment to be seized. The legal argument was brilliant. If the lions were sentient, they had rights. If they had rights, they couldn't be confiscated without due process. And proving sentience, or lack thereof, would tie the issue in courts for years. Palpatine's mask cracked further. The Jedi Order has no authority to crack. Authority we claim not, Yoda interrupted. Sanctuary we offer. Ancient Jedi tradition. Protecting sentient beings from unjust persecution is. Refuse the Order's protection. Can the Senate? Or violate 1,000 years of precedent, will you? The trap was perfect. Rejecting Jedi sanctuary would alienate the Republic's most powerful allies. Accepting it meant the Voltron Force remained free under Jedi protection, operating independently but with legitimacy. Palpatine's expression went perfectly blank, the look of a chess master realizing he'd been outmaneuvered. Very well. The Jedi Council's petition is acknowledged. Paladins, you're granted temporary sanctuary pending legal resolution of your status. But make no mistake, this matter isn't finished. Neither are we, Keith said quietly. As the Senate dissolved into arguing factions, the Voltron Force left with Master Yoda. In the corridor outside, Keith finally allowed himself to breathe. That was insane, Hunk said. We just told the galactic government to shove it. We told them we're not property, Alora corrected. There's a difference. Yoda's ears twitched with what might have been amusement. Bold, you were. Foolish, perhaps. But right, absolutely right. Forgotten, the Republic has. That power without consent is tyranny. Reminded them. You did. Value that. Many senators will. And the ones who won't? Lance asked. Make you their enemy. They will. Yoda said simply. Dangerous path you have chosen. But chosen with eyes open, you did. Respect that. I do. In his office, Palpatine's calm facade shattered the moment his door sealed. His fist slammed against his desk, the dark side radiating from him in waves that made nearby furniture tremble. They refused, Masameda said unnecessarily. They did more than refuse. They exposed Republic surveillance, invoked legal protections, and made me look like a tyrant in front of 1,000 senators. Palpatine's yellow eyes blazed. Yoda's gambit was perfect. I can't move against them without alienating the Jedi. I can't let them operate freely without appearing weak, and I can't eliminate them without revealing capabilities I'm not ready to show. What's your command, my lord? Palpatine forced calm over his features, dark-side fury condensing into cold calculation. We accelerate the timeline. Count Dooku has had his chance to turn them through manipulation. It failed. Now we try harder methods. He activated a secure channel. Execute Order Nightfall. I want the Voltron Force compromised, corrupted, or killed within 30 days. Use any assets necessary. No witnesses. As you command, Lord Sidious. Across Coruscant, in a dive cantina that catered to beings who asked no questions, Cad Bane accepted a contract from a hooded figure whose credits spent beautifully despite their suspicious origin. 5 targets, the figure said. Extremely dangerous. Extremely valuable. I want them broken. Physically, emotionally, psychologically. Make them desperate enough to accept any offer of safety. Bane studied the target profiles. The Voltron Paladins. Heard they embarrassed you in the Senate today. Your opinion is neither requested nor compensated, the figure replied coldly. Can you deliver or not? Bane's reptilian smile was answer enough. Their bonds, their principles, their desperate hope that they're still heroes. Whatever you need. Just ensure when they're sufficiently broken, they're receptive to recruitment by my associates. The Separatists? Does it matter? Nope. Bane pocketed the credit chip. Pleasure doing business with darkness itself. In the temple meditation gardens, the Voltron Force sat together under alien stars, processing what they'd just done. They'd declared independence from the galactic government. They'd become targets of every political faction that valued control over freedom. They'd committed to staying in this galaxy and fighting its wars on their terms. "We're really doing this," Hunk said quietly. "No government backing. No guarantee of support. Just us against everyone who wants to use us." "Not everyone," Anakin said, emerging from shadows with Ahsoka. "The Jedi support you. Quietly, unofficially. But we support you. And there are senators. Organa, Mothma, Amidala, others who respect what you did today." "Respect doesn't stop legislation," Pidge said. "Palpatine will find other ways to control us." "Probably," Anakin agreed. "But you made something clear today that the Republic desperately needed to hear, that power doesn't equal authority, that beings can refuse, that even in wartime, freedom matters." He smiled slightly. "You reminded us what we're supposed to be fighting for, and made ourselves targets in the process," Lance said. "Heroes usually are," Ahsoka added. "Comes with the job description." Keith looked at his team exhausted, scared, but resolute. "Tomorrow," Keith said, "we start fresh. We establish rules of engagement, decide which conflicts deserve our intervention, figure out how to help without becoming pawns. Tonight," he managed a smile. "Tonight, we rest, because something tells me easy days are about to become very scarce." "They already are," Alora said, but she was smiling too. In the Force, Master Yoda felt futures crystallizing. The Paladins had chosen their path, and in doing so, had altered destiny itself. Palpatine's plans, so carefully laid, now faced an unpredictable variable that operated outside all normal calculations. The Sith Lord wanted control. The Paladins represented chaos. And when control met chaos, even the dark side couldn't predict the outcome. "Interesting times these are," Yoda murmured to himself. "Most interesting indeed." The mission came 3 days after their Senate declaration, not from the Republic, but from something older. A distress beacon, broadcasting on ancient frequencies that predated the current galactic government by millennia. Pidge had detected it while scanning for dimensional anomalies, hoping against hope that some trace of their universe's signature remained. Instead, she'd found a cry for help from a planet the Republic had forgotten existed. "Dathomir," Anakin said when they brought him the coordinates. His expression darkened. "That's complicated." "Complicated how?" Keith asked. "It's the Night Sister homeworld. Force witches who use the dark side but aren't Sith. They're isolationist, powerful, and extremely dangerous. The Republic doesn't go there. Neither does the Confederacy. It's neutral territory by mutual agreement that poking that hornet's nest isn't worth whatever you'd gain." "But someone's calling for help," Alora said, studying the decoded message. "Multiple settlements under attack by something they describe as void beasts. Whatever that means." "Could be a trap," Ahsoka warned. "Ventress is Dathomirian. This could be her setting you up." "Could be," Keith agreed. "Or it could be people dying, while we debate whether helping them is strategically sound. We've already established we don't make decisions based on politics. We make them based on need." Anakin studied him for a long moment. "You know the Council won't approve this mission. Dathomir is off limits for good reasons. Going there means you're truly operating independently. No Republic backup, no Jedi support." "Understood," Keith said. "We're going anyway." "I knew you'd say that." Anakin smiled slightly. "Which is why I'm coming with you. Unofficially. If the Council asks, I was never there. Wouldn't that violate your orders? Probably." Anakin's hand rested on his lightsaber. "But you reminded me something important in that Senate chamber. That following orders isn't the same as doing what's right. Sometimes they align. Sometimes they don't. This is one of those times." Dathomir hung in space like a diseased eye. Green and purple atmosphere, swirling with dark side energy so thick it made even non-force sensitives nauseous. The lines descended through clouds that felt wrong, touching atmosphere that actively resisted their presence. "Green sensors are going haywire," Pidge reported. "The dark side energy is interfering with everything. I can barely maintain cohesion in the navigation systems. Stay close together, Keith ordered. If we get separated in this soup, finding each other will be nearly impossible. They broke through the cloud layer into nightmare. Dathomir's surface was a twisted landscape of dead forests, poisoned swamps, and ruins that predated Republic history. And everywhere, were bodies. Oh no, Hunk whispered. Dathomirian settlements burned. The Night Sisters, powerful Force witches who dominated this planet for generations, lay dead in streets, their magic having failed against whatever killed them. The void beasts from the distress signal became horrifyingly clear. They looked like holes in reality given form. Shadowy creatures with too many limbs, moving in ways that violated physics, feeding on the Force itself and leaving desolation in their wake. What are those things? Lance's voice carried revulsion. Anakin's Force presence recoiled. I don't know. I've never felt anything like them. They're not just dark side, they're anti-Force, like they're erasing it from existence. Quintessence parasites, Alora breathed, horror in her voice. We fought something similar in the quantum abyss during the war. They feed on life energy. But these 7, she pulled up readings. These are adapted to consume the Force specifically. Someone weaponized them. Who? Keith demanded. Does it matter right now? Pidge interrupted. We've got approximately 50 of those things converging on the last defended position. Looks like a fortress temple. Maybe 200 survivors inside. Half of them children. They've got minutes before those creatures breach their defenses. Keith didn't hesitate. Paladins. Combat formation. We end this now. We end this now. Blue Lion descended like judgment itself. Keith's fury at seeing another planet devastated by forces beyond inhabitants' control channeling through their bond. The lion's mouth opened, quintessence gathering not just energy, but life itself given weapon form. The blast that erupted met the void beasts, and something remarkable happened. Where Force attacks simply vanished into their anti-reality forms, where lightsabers passed through them without effect. The creatures shrieked with sounds that existed outside normal acoustics, writhing as Blue's attack consumed them, not killed unmade. Erased from existence, as thoroughly as they'd tried to erase the Force itself. They're vulnerable to quintessence, Keith shouted. All lions, concentrate fire, drive them back. The 5 lions became instruments of cleansing fury. Red Lion's agility let Lance strike creatures attempting to flank. Green Lion's precision targeting eliminated threats before they could fully manifest. Yellow Lion's heavy firepower created barriers of pure life energy that the void beasts couldn't penetrate. And Alora's Red Lion moved like a conductor, coordinating their assault into a symphony of salvation. Anakin and Ahsoka fought on the ground, their lightsabers useless against the creatures, but critically effective at protecting survivors as they evacuated to the temple's inner sanctum. The Jedi's Force abilities might not harm the beasts, but they could sense them, predict their movements, buy precious seconds for people to escape. Within an hour, the void beasts were destroyed or driven back into whatever dimensional tear had released them. The lions stood sentinel around the temple, while survivors emerged scarred, traumatized, but alive. A Night Sister elder approached, leaning heavily on a staff carved from bone. Her face was tattooed with clan markings, eyes holding depths of pain and grudging respect. You are the Voltron Force, she said. It wasn't a question. Word of your defiance in the Republic Senate has spread even to our isolated world. We called for help, believing no one would answer. Believing ourselves abandoned by a galaxy that fears our power. Over. End quote. We answer calls for help, Keith said simply. Politics don't matter. Species don't matter. Only need matters. The elder studied him with Force-enhanced perception. You speak truly. Your life force burns with conviction rather than deception. But answer me this. Young Paladin, who sent these creatures, Who would weaponize the void against Force users specifically? We don't know yet, Pidge admitted, but I've collected samples of residual dimensional energy from the breach point. With analysis, we might trace it back to its source. When you do, the Elder said softly, and her voice carried threat that made even the void beasts seem benign. Inform us. The Night Sisters are not Republic citizens. We do not ask for justice through political channels. We take blood price from those who spill our blood. Vengeance won't bring back your dead, Ahsoka said gently. No, the Elder agreed. But it will prevent future dead. The being who did this thinks Force users are vulnerable. They experimented on us because we're isolated, politically insignificant, easy to dismiss. They will try again on larger targets, Jedi temples, Sith strongholds, Force-sensitive populations across the galaxy. Unless someone makes the cost of such experiments prohibitive. Keith understood. This wasn't random violence. This was testing. Someone had weaponized anti-Force creatures and deployed them on a population no one would defend, gathering data for larger attacks. We'll find who did this, Keith promised, and we'll make sure they can't do it again. See that you do, Paladin. The Night Sisters remembered debts both owed and paid. As they prepared to depart, the Elder approached Keith privately. She pressed something into his hand, a small talisman carved from crystal that pulsed with dark side energy. This is a debt marker, she explained. Call upon the Night Sisters once, and we will answer without question. Only once. Choose wisely when that time comes. Keith pocketed it, understanding the weight of what he'd just accepted. An alliance with dark side Force witches, made without Republic approval or Jedi oversight. Another step further from any government's control. Back on Coruscant, in the Temple's analysis laboratory, Pidge worked through the night, studying the dimensional residue from Dathomir. What she found made her blood run cold. Keith, she said when he arrived at dawn, her voice shaking. I've traced the energy signature. The breach that released those creatures, it wasn't natural. It was technological. And the technology. She pulled up a schematic that made Keith's stomach drop. That's Republic military tech, he said. Specifically, it's experimental dimensional research from a black site facility on Coruscant, Pidge confirmed. Someone in the Republic military deliberately opened a rift to a dimension inhabited by Force-eating entities and released them on Dathomir. As a test, to see if they could weaponize them against Force users. Keith finished, the implications crashing down. Against Jedi. Against Sith. Against anyone who relies on the Force. There's more. Pidge's fingers trembled on her datapad. The authorization code for the experiment traces back to the Chancellor's office. Keith. Palpatine is behind this. He tried to exterminate an entire planet of Force users as a weapons test. The silence was absolute. We need to tell the Council, Lance said from the doorway. He'd been listening. This is proof Palpatine is. Is what? Anakin's voice cut in sharply. He'd arrived with Ahsoka. Experimenting with dimensional weapons? The Republic has dozens of experimental programs. Without proof of direct authorization, this is circumstantial. Anakin, he tried to genocide Dathomir. Keith protested. He'll deny it. Blame rogue scientists. Launch an investigation that goes nowhere. Anakin's voice was bitter. I've seen this pattern before. The Chancellor is protected by layers of bureaucracy and plausible deniability. Even with this evidence, proving his involvement would take years. So we do nothing? Alora demanded. We gather more evidence, Anakin said grimly. Build an airtight case. And in the meantime, he met Keith's eyes. We watch him. Very carefully. Because if Palpatine is experimenting with anti-Force weapons, he's planning something bigger than anyone suspects. In his office, Palpatine felt the disturbance through the Force, not the specific discovery, but the general sense of plans unraveling. They were investigating. The Night Sister experiment failed, he said to Darth Tyrannus's hologram. Count Dooku's expression was carefully neutral. The Paladins interfered, my master. Their quintessence energy proved effective against the void entities. An unexpected variable. Unexpected variable. Unexpected variable. Everything about them is unexpected, Palpatine snarled. They reject our authority. They expose our operations. They save populations we need eliminated. They're chaos incarnate, destroying carefully laid plans through sheer unpredictability. Then perhaps, Dooku suggested carefully, we should stop trying to control them and simply eliminate them. One decisive strike, overwhelming force, no survivors, no. Palpatine forced calm. They're too useful. Their technology, their power source, their bond with sentient machines, all valuable beyond measure. We need them broken and compliant, not dead. And if they cannot be broken, Palpatine's smile was cold. Everything breaks eventually, Dooku. You simply need to find the right pressure point. The Paladin's pressure point is their compassion. They sacrifice themselves for others. So we'll create situations where helping means destroying themselves. One impossible choice after another until they're so damaged, so desperate, that when I offer them purpose, power, belonging, they'll accept gratefully. That could take years, Master. I have time. The Clone Wars will continue as planned. Order 66 will proceed on schedule. And when the Jedi fall, Palpatine's yellow eyes gleamed. The Voltron Force will have no sanctuary left. They'll have only me. And by then, they'll be grateful for any master who offers stability. Remember, end quote. But in the Force, deeper currents moved. The quintessence energy from the Lions was changing things, awakening ancient connections, resonating with beings long thought dead or myths. Somewhere in the galaxy, consciousness stirred. Beings attuned not to the Force but to life itself felt the Paladin's presence and began moving toward them. The Voltron Force had thought they were alone in this galaxy. They were about to discover they'd been noticed by powers far older than the Republic, far stranger than the Sith, and far more interested in their unique nature than any political faction. The Jedi Temple's observation deck had become Keith's refuge in the weeks following Dathomir. He stood there now, watching Coruscant's traffic streams. Blue Lion visible in the distant hangar, its form silhouetted against the planet's endless artificial glow. They'd saved Dathomir, exposed a Republic war crime, refused governmental conscription, made enemies of beings who commanded star fleets and manipulated destinies. And through it all, they'd remained together, 5 Paladins and 5 Lions, bound by purpose stronger than any political allegiance. But the cost was becoming clear. The wormhole energy was gone. Their path home sealed by the choice to help strangers. The Republic viewed them as useful threats requiring management. The Separatists saw them as prizes to capture or weapons to destroy. And somewhere in Coruscant's shadows, forces they didn't yet understand were moving against them with malicious patience. Regrets? Alora asked, joining him at the window. The others followed Lance with his characteristic swagger that didn't quite hide exhaustion. Pidge with datapads full of research she'd never complete. Hunk carrying food because some comfort was eternal. And Anakin, who'd become something between ally and friend. About staying? No. Keith's answer surprised him with its certainty. About how we're staying? Ask me after the next crisis. So, in about 3 hours, Lance predicted. Because that's our average these days. Anakin's calm chirped urgently. He listened, his expression darkening. Speak of the devil. The Council needs us. There's been another incident, this time on Onderon. Political assassination, civil war brewing, and reports of dark side practitioners using techniques that match nothing in Jedi archives. Techniques that might involve dimensional manipulation? Pidge asked, already pulling up Onderon's star charts. The Council suspects a connection to Dathomir, Anakin confirmed. Whatever Palpatine started, it's spreading. We need to stop it before it consumes the galaxy. Keith looked at his team, saw the determination beneath their fatigue, the resolve beneath their fear. They'd lost their way home. They'd gained a galaxy that needed them, whether it wanted to admit it or not. Paladins, he said, feeling Blue Lion's consciousness touch his mind with warmth and certainty. As they moved toward their lions, Master Yoda watched from the shadows, his ancient eyes tracking their determined progress. He felt futures branching, destinies intertwining, and the Force itself bending around these 5 impossible warriors from an impossible place. "Change everything they will," Yoda murmured. "For better or worse, no, not even I do. But necessary their presence is. That much clear becomes." In his hidden sanctum, Darth Sidious felt them moving through the Force 5 void spaces that shouldn't exist, disrupting his carefully woven plans simply by refusing to be controlled. Rage and calculation warred in his ancient mind. The Clone Wars would continue. Order 66 would fall like judgment. The Jedi would burn. The Republic would transform into Empire, and galactic dominion would be his. But the Voltron Force represented something he'd never encountered in decades of Sith manipulation. True unpredictability. Not chaos born of stupidity or emotion, but principled defiance that operated outside every framework he understood. They would need to be dealt with, eventually, when the time was right. Until then, let them fight. In the end, Darth Sidious always won. The 5 lions launched from the temple, their forms blazing across Coruscant's sky like shooting stars, heading toward Onderon and whatever fresh crisis awaited. Inside their cockpits, the Paladins felt the bond that transcended universes, transcended manipulation, transcended fear itself. They were defenders of the universe, a title earned in another galaxy, but no less true in this one. They'd lost their way home, but found new purpose. They'd rejected servitude to governments and chosen service to beings who needed protection. The Clone Wars would test them in ways the fight against Zarkon never had. Political intrigue would challenge their certainty. Moral compromise would threaten their principles. The dark side itself would whisper promises of power and belonging, but they would face it together. 5 Paladins, 5 Lions. One unbreakable bond forged across dimensional barriers and strengthened by impossible choices. Somewhere in the void between galaxies, in dimensions that touched reality without belonging to it, ancient beings watched the Voltron Force with interest that transcended mere curiosity. The Paladins had brought quintessence energy to a galaxy governed by the Force, creating resonance that awakened consciousnesses long dormant. The Mortis gods stirred in their cosmic slumber, sensing power that rivaled their own. The Wills adjusted their eternal record, noting unprecedented convergence. And deep in unknown space, something that existed between dimensions and defied categorization turned its attention toward 5 impossible machines and decided intervention would be interesting. The Voltron Force had entered the Clone Wars, thinking they'd fight until they could escape. They didn't yet understand they'd become central to conflicts far larger than political factions or even Sith machinations. Their very presence was altering the galaxy's fundamental nature, awakening forces dormant for millennia, and setting in motion events that would reshape not just the war, but the Force itself. The Clone Wars was their trial. What came after would define their legend. But that was a story for another time. Right now, they had a planet to save, enemies to fight, and principles to uphold. Together, the way Paladins always had, the way they always would. May the Force be with you. More stories await.